Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the VMO TCUK, the penultimate round of the 2022 season here from Silverstone National. It's going to be a wonderful night of touring car racing once again. I'm delighted to be here in the commentary box. My name is Chaz Dracop, and I am, again, delighted to be joined by Aidan Millward. Aidan, it's a long time since, well, not only since we've properly spoken in Discord, but last time we commentated here together, we were actually at Silverstone, but it was multiple thousand horsepower American mail vans making their way around here. Do you think it's going to be much different tonight?
Yeah, it was the Boxmaster GTEs, and then it was like the girlfriends of the drivers racing Clios or something like that.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, that was probably about a year and a half ago or something like that. So it's absolutely mental how long it's been. But to be back here at Silverstone, commentating on some touring cars, it's going to be an absolute laugh tonight.
It is indeed, and of course the main difference now between the last time I saw these cars anyway and the obviously this season now, it's actually the hybrid element which has been brought in, which is fantastic to have in these cars. R Factor have done a wonderful job with the BTCC cars as of late. The BMW just being announced as well, which will be coming to the service very, very soon. It's just great to have proper touring cars, isn't it? Because across the last few years with a number of different sims, there's never been a real true sort of full-on laser scanned, properly developed touring car, has there? It's all been mods that are of varying quality, really.
Yeah, I think now with R Factor 2 getting the official BTCC content, and just as a fun stat, it's 25 years since the original TOCA game on the PlayStation, so anybody watching that's now feeling old, I do apologise, but I mean, I played that. You must have played that at some point. I know I definitely played TOCA 2 and things like that, but to have proper BTCC touring cars in a sim as, okay, it's debatable what's realistic and what's not. I mean, I've never driven one, so I can't comment on how realistic they are, but we've got proper licensed BTCC cars in a sim, and everybody I know who's driven them has said, these things are amazing, how can we watch? And it's just not, it's one of those things that we're just keeping in Britain that we're not letting out there. Like V8 supercars are shown around the world, NASCAR shown around the world, DTM was shown around the world when it was the older cars, but BTCC is still very much a British thing. So getting out there, maybe one day it will become what it was in the 90s again.
Yeah, hopefully so as well, because I mean the NGTC regulations are amazing. The cars look absolutely stunning. They make such a great noise as well. That's one of the things that no real sort of game or sim has ever properly captured. Maybe TOCA 2 actually, it had quite the rasp and the proper gear change sort of pops and bangs that you would have had from the Super Touring era, but the sound is very unique from these cars. You would expect that, yeah, they might just sound like your everyday TCR car, but there's a bit of a difference in the sort of baffling and the way that the noise is produced. So I think it's great that we have such detailed cars, and cars that are good to drive, because you and I both know just how exciting touring car racing can be, but a touring car, a proper touring car, it's exciting to drive just on its own as well, isn't it? It's a proper spectacle with a big, massive lever of a gear shifter rather than flappy paddles like you get in TCRs, and that horrendously loud 4-pot turbocharged scream to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, we were probably 2 years ago now, we were racing together at this track in this league. So
very true.
We'd watch them on the TV, every other Sunday. We'd race them in this, and now we're talking about them. So I think we've pretty much completed the set, haven't we, with these cars? So, and don't let these this bit of stock footage fool you. It is wet out there. The weather is very much autumnal Britain right now. I mean, I'm about 70 miles north of Silverstone, so it's been wet here. It's been absolutely sodden out there over the course of today, so we could expect 3 races all completely wet, which might actually be a first for this series.
And it's been great to watch as well. We were having a quick look earlier on at practice, and you get the standing water, the rain effects and the reflections, and I mean, look at the state of it here. It's absolutely vile, but you can see now the drivers are lining up on the grid for the first race of the night. This is going to be, if I do my maths correctly, this is going to be round 25 of the championship. This 30-round championship that replicates the British Touring Car Championship oh so well. We've got the BMWs, the Infinities. We've even got some Subaru Levorgs and the Ford Focuses as well. There is one of the Focuses right near the front of the grid. And we're about to get things underway. We've got John Munro on pole position with Matt Richards alongside him, Callum Wilson and Dan Kell on row 2. Then it's Daniel Hurlock and Chris Butcher on row 3. Richards, the championship leader at the moment, and he's having a hell of a season of it so far. We're underway for the warm-up lap. Get everybody, hopefully, some sort of temperature in their tyres. Here's that grid again, then we'll recap it. John Munro, pole position, alongside Matt Richards, Ford and BMW. Callum Wilson in third, alongside Dan Kell on row 2. Then we have Daniel Hurlock and Chris Butcher on row 3. Jakub Kowalski is alongside Ross McGregor on row 4. We both had a similar reaction before when we saw Ross was on the grid. It's great to see him back. We then have Daniel Hyde in the Go for the Gap Racing Toyota alongside Dylan Platt in the Subaru Levorg. Kyle Benton is in 11th place with Tomasz Vak. Next up in 12th position, Scott Morris and Ben Willis make up the 7th row of the grid, followed by Johannes Lepit and Cameron Brewster for Drake Racing, just behind his teammate in 16th position. The back row of the grid is going to be made up of Chris Cobbett in the BMW and Phil Morby in the Ford Focus, a driver that we've both had some very big battles against in the past, to be fair, Aidan. Phil's a real staple of this championship, isn't he?
Yeah, he's... I mean, I still haven't forgiven him for the accident at Thruxton in Season 1 where I was following Jack Nicholls and I pulled out to try and get a sniff at him and to find that Morby was there broadside in the middle of the track at Church. And it was quite a horrendous accident. It's a good thing I didn't have a direct drive at that particular point. But yeah, John Munro, YouTube's own John Munro, coming to park up on the grid. Matt Richards giving it some beans to get those tyres warmed up. It depends on how long everybody else is going to be waiting, but it's going to be a great start heading towards Copse. Very famous corner in motorsport for varying reasons. A little bit of a dry line appearing on the track, so that the cars managed to clear some of that water, but Morby is now in position, so it looks like the race is about to get going.
And a couple of cars further on from Morby, I think it was Johannes Lepit actually just reversing on the grid there. I'm not sure whether he's going to get away with that, but you can see a big angle, as our producer has pointed out, from John Munro. Really points the car over, Hackett style, but we're underway for the 25th round of the season. And off the line straight away, Matt Richards has flown in front of John Munro. Really good start from him, and Callum Wilson holds on to third place. There's reigning champion Dan Kell in the Ford Focus. Everybody else filtering through nice and clean so far. You can sort of feel the fact that they're tiptoeing, but you're right though, Aidan, dry line already as they go into Maggots and Beckett's. A little bit later on the brakes there, a bit of argy-bargy in the background between Ross McGregor and Daniel Hurlock side by side. You can see in the bottom right of his shot there the view from Phil Morby as everybody tries to sort of scrape along the side of their rivals, but nice tidy first couple of corners at least, but there's good battles going on further down. Yeah,
as they're coming up to Brooklands now, Phil Morby under the bridge, trying to have a sniff at a couple of positions. Everybody's been nice and clean, no carnage on the opening lap so far, but Matt Richards getting an absolute vintage Turkington style BMW launch off the grid there, so he's probably using his flappy paddle clutch again. That's probably why he's been so good with it, but the rear wheel drive just getting an absolutely stellar launch, as they often do in these kinds of conditions.
They do indeed. You can see attack mode 1 coming up on the left hand side of the screen. That's when the drivers are using the hybrid, which they can deploy in the sim with these cars. It's a fantastic element to have as well. It's been really exciting to see the drivers operating it in the British Touring Car Championship in real life, but to have it come through and be effective on the sim as well, just as exciting. There's Johannes Lepit in the TR powered by Geeks Energy Subaru Levorg. Great to see that some drivers are still driving that absolute boat of a machine, but to be honest, in its prime, that was one hell of a touring car, wasn't it, when Ash Sutton won the title with it?
Yeah, it's like watching the TWR Volvos again, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Except they had a bit of performance. It's one of those, it's like the 787B of touring cars. Everybody holds it as a cult classic, but really wasn't that good, as Munro is being sniffed at by Callum Wilson, who had a stellar performance for Newcastle United at the weekend, although it's not the same guy, but it's great to see the cars very close. Richards is basically just checking out at the minute. He's got nearly a second on everybody else. There's a bit of a wobble there in the background. It's Dylan Platt in his Subaru, painted like an energy drinks can, that, isn't it? That's a brilliant looking livery. That's the Toyota of Dan Hyde in behind him as Richards sets the fastest lap. So he's racking up the points at the minute, is Matt Richards. Point for fastest lap, maybe. Point for leading the race. He's on his way for the title, even though he's actually missed, I think, 5 rounds or 5 races of this season or something like that.
Yeah, he didn't start. Last time we were at Silverstone, he didn't start races 1 and 2, and he missed the entire race meeting at Alton Park as well. But he's taken 6 race wins this season, the most of anybody. The most anyone else has got, is 3. He's got 15 podiums, and the most anyone else has got is 11. He actually won the last race that was shown as well, which was Knock Hill. He's been on the podium for the last 9 races from Croft. Since Croft, Matt Richards has been on the podium in every race. It's been absolutely remarkable. But the thing is, he really clicks with that BMW. He knows it inside out by now. As you can see, Callum Wilson gliding the Infinity round the final corner, trying to stick with John Munro in front. You can see McGregor's name on the side of the car, but that's just part and parcel of things in R-Factor. Sometimes you can run in someone else's car, but they just haven't had time to put John's name on the window. Maybe they didn't have the vinyl ready. But look at how much these guys are attacking the curbs and the inside of these corners. Maybe a little bit on the outside there for Dan Kell, but that's the thing. You've got to push in these conditions. Now there's a drying line. You've got to sort of test the limit of where that grip is, haven't you?
Yeah, the real road system in R-Factor 2, which is basically how this works. It's like a dynamic rubbering in of the track. So if Daniel Hurlock was to take the Giovanardi line right round the inside of that corner, it would wear the water away at that specific point. It's not set like it is in other sims, so no matter where you drive, it's going to rubber up, and you can see it at some points that that line is going to get wider as the drivers start making these moves into Brookman. So it's a very clever system. They've brought in a big update for it, which changes the way it all handles, so it's a little bit more realistic than it used to be, but still probably something that none of the other sims have.
Yeah, that's it. And you know, when you've got a road that reacts to what you're doing underneath you, especially when you get a real racing driver that comes over and uses the sim for training, it's the perfect tool to have, because you're not always going to have a track underneath you that feels perfect. You know, you might get there on a certain day and there might have been, I don't know, some sort of dust storm or something, or bad weather that has affected the circuit in a horrible way, left a load of rubber on from a previous race meeting. And to have a perfect track all the time is not what a driver wants, because it could fill them with confidence. They could go into the real thing and then have a really bad time. Scott Morris is having a bit of a bad time at the moment, actually having a bit of a battle there with one of the BMWs around him. I think that is Chris Cobbett that's with him in car number 44. Very close together indeed as they go into Maggots on the brakes. And now he tries to tuck the inside of the Subaru down the inside of the BMW. Sort of rear-wheel drive nightmare fuel right now with the slippery offline conditions, isn't it? Because, oh, hello, that was very scary there from Benton. But that's the thing. Even on the deceleration side of things, there's contact in front. Rip F. There's a big F in front. That is the Go for the Gap racing machine around. I think that was Dan Hyde, wasn't it, going through Luffield?
Yeah, that's probably going to get a steward's report filed for that one, but yeah, that's just one of the things that happens. I'm surprised to see the Toyota just get launched around like that. Maybe the track really is that slippery, but as you see, Wilson just get a wobble on the exit of Copse, so it's still a little bit treacherous out there. But the front wheel drive to go around like that really shows how wet the track is.
Yeah, normally in that situation you can just stamp your foot and save it and just turn into it a little bit, glide the car around, but no, absolutely no chance of that for Dan Hyde in that scenario. But right now, the top 5, I don't want to say stale at the moment, but it is a little bit sedate with how the battles are progressing. Here's another look at things. So this is Dan Hyde side by side with one of the Infinities. That was car number 9 that was next to him on there. I can't see the car number on the timing screen, unfortunately. Now he's down the inside, but then look,
he's turned across him.
Yeah, just doesn't quite leave the gap. But I think with the run that he had through Brooklands, I think he would have expected that he would have fully been ahead by the time they got to Luffield. Great avoidance by those behind, and well done to Dan for holding the brakes and leaving the car where it is. He decided not to sort of throw himself back into the middle of the road. Just trying to see if I could find out which other driver that was that he was involved in. I think it was Daniel Hurlock, actually, in the number 9, that was the, I don't want to say the offender, actually, but the car that turned him around, basically. But yeah, as you say, I think Dan just closed the door on him there, expecting to got rid of the overlap. More battles, though, going on inside the top 10. Cam Brewster here, side by side.
Throwing up the inside of Maggots and Beckett's car out of shape. Oh, that's I'll have to see another look at that. I'm looking at this with my steward's eyes at the minute, because I'm the one that's going to have to go through all this afterwards and make sure nothing untoward happened. But yeah, you look at it, it's like, well, that might have looked like an unsafe rejoin, but I'll wait until I actually see the reports for that one. But Cameron Brewster up into 9th there ahead of Jakub Kowalski. There's a train of cars in behind him, so should get nice and spicy over the rest of this race. We're only 7 of 22 in, so everything's happening here tonight. We should make it rain more often.
Yeah, apologies. I did say it was Daniel Hurlock before, but on the timing screen he came up as car number 9, but it was actually Jakub Kowalski that was involved with Dan Hyde, so apologies to Daniel. But right now, we have a few cars getting more and more glued together in the middle here. Phil Morby started from the back of the grid, and that's a very cursed car branding logo down the side of it, to be honest with you. It's a mix of Toyota and Ford. But Morby's always had these sort of striking liveries on his cars, hasn't he? It's been like dazzle camouflage to everybody around him.
I think the story goes is that he wanted to drive the Toyota, but he also wanted to drive the Ford and couldn't decide which one he wanted to drive, so he's gone. he's taken the Focus again, but painted it somewhat akin to the old BAR livery from 1999 with the... Just needs a zip down the middle, and that's sorted as he's under attack here from car number 85. That's Ben Willis. Willis cuts the corner. Nicely on the apex of Brooklands, a car off on the outside.
Kowalski.
Morby's coming back again, trying not to hit him. Oh, a little bit of contact, but the Infiniti still survives. For some reason, when I'm doing the students' reports, that turns up as a BMW. I'm not sure how that keeps happening, but Ben Willis has managed to make that work.
Yeah, only just as well. He left minimal room there down the inside to Phil Morby, but it was very close, lovely touring car racing. But it's great to see that they can have those tiny moments of contact and still get away with it. This is Jakub Kowalski for the Wilsman Racing Machine.
Himself.
Yeah, he just gets off that dry line, doesn't he, on the way in? Dips that right rear around. Actually, that's a very good shout. Well, he's been around twice already. Because he went round at Maggots and Beckett's not long ago. It was him that was sideways in front of the rest of the field. So maybe he has made an interesting call there. As we look here at Daniel Hurlock, there is the actual Daniel Hurlock, car number 87 for RSR. And ahead of him is Chris Butcher trying to make progress forward. Chris, of course, a driver that's always one of the front runners in this championship. But right now, he's stuck behind the actual Ross McGregor in the Ford Focus.
Yeah, it's the performance has teetered off a bit for Butchie at the minute, the winner of Season 1 in 2020. But he's just not seemed to be near the front lately. Been involved in a couple of accidents, not of his own making, a couple of tracks this season. But yeah, it's usually he's fighting for the win, but right now he's stuck behind Ross McGregor as we look back from the Scotsman. And it looks like Butcher might come under attack from Daniel Hurlock in behind as well. So then again, he's carrying a bit of ballast. The cars are carrying ballast depending on where they are in the championship, so that might be holding him back a bit. So in race 2, he'll shed a bit of that, carry a little bit less, then who knows, maybe he will be at the front again. But some drivers just have off days. Whoa, almost went round. And again, is he on dry tyres as well? Well, it's yellow sidewall tyres. So that's the mediums, as Paul DeResta would say.
They're brave, these boys, aren't they, if they genuinely are. But yeah, Chris Butcher, he's got 2 race wins and 11 podiums this season. It looks like Hurlock's on those tyres, and indeed behind him as well you've got Platt on those tyres too. So it really shows you that, you know, these drivers, they had the confidence that it was going to dry out. I mean, compared to what we saw in practice earlier, it is basically a stone dry circuit now in comparison, as Butcher now on the right hand side of McGregor. McGregor leaves him the space. Dan Kell has actually sort of backed up into these pair now. Butcher gets out of it into Maggots and Beckett's, tries to keep it nice and tidy. It's Dylan Platt that's gone through and overtaken Hurlock, but look at the car getting out of shape on the power on the exit, and Butcher's got alongside McGregor now, but while he's on the inside here for Brooklands, Aidan, that's going to put him on the outside for Luffield. This could be a bit of a freebie potentially for Dylan Platt if he gets close enough. Oh, that was nearly contact there. There still might be. There is.
Still rubbing. I think he was trying the full John Cleland, Steve Soper from 1992 here with the almost vaulting it on 2 wheels there. But this is the thing with those particular corners, you know, Brooklands, Luffield. There's like 400 different lines you can take through there, so the racing's always brilliant. And there's not that many circuits left where you can do that. Usually it's just one line and that's it, and the racing suffers as people trying to go side by side through cops. Luckily, no 55G impact attempted murders today, as he hit the sawtooths on the exit. They just bottom the car out and spear you off. Shouldn't have a track limits warning for that with the new system involved, so you have to basically give up time if you know you're going off. So it's a little bit more lenient than it was before with the set black and white. You went off track. Here's a warning. As up ahead, that's Callum Wilson attempting a move on John Monroe.
Down the inside, John Gibbs in the room as well. Brake discs glowing as he makes his way through Brooklands and lovely stuff. Oh, straight off. That was Dan Kell losing positions, and Butcher's got 2 out of that. He's got up into 4th place, so he's got ahead of McGregor. And considering that Chris Butcher, after the little battle that he had before, losing out to Platt and then Herlock, then he mugged the pair of them at Copse. He's now then mugged the 2 Zancho cars as well, and Butcher moves himself up into 4th place, and he's going to be hoping that the guys behind continue to battle. There was a bit of contact there as well. I think Dan Kell potentially, actually no, sorry, it would have been Ross McGregor and Herlock having a bit of a kiss down the start-finish straight, both getting away with it. But Callum Wilson up into 2nd place. Great stuff in the Infinity. He's now going to be hoping to go chasing after race leader Matt Richards. This is the sort of turning point in the race now, though, isn't it, Aidan, where we'll see who's looked after the tyres and most notably who's made the right call on the tyres as well, because the wets will be dying off right now. Yeah,
the wets typically last a bit longer. There's a little quirk with them that in the right conditions they work probably better than the hards. But with the new tyre model and things like that, they're probably going to start burning out now. It's kind of like that, was it Thruxton a couple of years ago, where it rained halfway through the race, but then it dried out, and then it rained again, and it was like Ash Sutton was on the right tyres in the end, and he just went and blitzed everybody to win the race at the end. So it's part of the strategy involved with this particular racing, because there's only 22 laps. We've just gone over the halfway point, and a pit stop here is just basically just absolute ruins your race. So it's like pick one, and you've just got to like right now it's just cope, and you can see them sort of coming off the line, maybe to just cool the tyres down a little bit as they come towards Copse Corner, where that front left is going to get absolutely mullered. So it just goes, Carl Benton going a little bit off track as Kowalski set the fastest lap time of 1:01.7 here.
Yeah, solid lap time indeed by Kowalski. Lovely stuff. He's hoping to make his way back through the order now after dropping right down into 15th position. He's not had the easiest time of it. We saw earlier that, of course, he was having a couple of spins here and there, but you're absolutely right. Drivers coming off the dry line right now to try and keep those tyres cool, and a very active approach there by Kyle Benton as he goes completely
Giersbergen style there at Eastern Creek.
Right off the circuit there. I'm not sure Kyle meant to do it quite that aggressively in the BMW, but maybe when he did start to go off the dry line, it spun up the rears and actually lost a bit of traction on the back and sort of threw him sideways, because I don't think he was daft enough to go all the way off on purpose like that. But still, it's intriguing for the drivers further up the order, because there is still a mix of tyres up there as well. I mean, looking at the tyre allocation for this evening, obviously the drivers have to take part with at least the option tyre in one race. We only had 4 drivers really registered to use that during this race, and to be honest with you, they would have just taken the wets instead and maybe not wasted the opportunity, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just checking my weather app right now just to see. It says drizzling right now, with drizzle for the next hour, so the track's going to remain moderately damp. Next race they probably might get away with using the with a drier compound of tyres, but like you say, they have to use a specific set. Well, they have to nominate a tyre to use as the option in one particular race, and there's rules regarding how wet the track needs to be before you can use the wets to avoid people using that little loophole with the dry type performance. As Dylan Platt trying a move here on that will be Chris Butcher ahead, so it looks like Butcher under attack again, might lose a position in the next couple of laps as Dylan Platt's going to send it up the inside. A little bit of contact as they come up to Brooklands. Vauxhall gets a little bit out of shape, and Dylan Platt maybe around the outside. No, he's not got the drive, but he's going to have another attack into Brooklands, I think, at the end of this little straight here.
Yeah, it was a bit of an interesting one, that, because Dylan did put the car down the inside, and I think Butcher was just really determined to stay on the dry line and not lose that traction on the brakes into Maggots and Beckett. So we've got the 2 Sancho focuses stuck together here. This is Dan Kell behind Ross McGregor. These two currently running in 7th and 8th position now, and they were inside the top 5 earlier on, but have lost a couple of places in the long run. Dan Herlock is apparently in 2nd place at the moment. He is flying up the order because of that tyre choice. He's suddenly come alive here, actually, Aidan. I can't believe that he's gone under the radar in doing this, but the boy's flying, absolutely flying at the moment. He's a good 1.3 seconds quicker than everyone else. Willis is now going fast as well, 1:07. That's another half second quicker than Herlock. So the drivers that were on the dries, they're suddenly coming flying back through now. It's like Brands Hatch, 2018 was it, feature race? Not, I say feature race, the third race. There was one in the wet. Yeah.
It's going back to that Thruxton thing. It's like later on in the race, everyone's on the right side. But that track is looking a lot drier now. So the likes of Richards and those who picked the wet tyres at the start of the race, they've lost the lottery here because the performance is now going to be dropping right off. Carl Benton's out of the race. I did see him in the pit lane earlier. Here's Daniel Hurlock on the mediums. There's someone else back there. It'll be Callum Wilson. He was on the dries as well, I believe, on the hards. So Matt Richards is getting the hurry up, and it looks like Daniel Hurlock might actually take the lead of this race with about 4 laps remaining.
It's like Platt's coming with him as well. Now, the two of them were both making progress earlier on in the Astra and in the Lavorg, respectively. And he's gone round the outside at Copse. Nearly a bit of a touch between himself and Richards. They're going to be side by side to Maggots and Beckett's. And off the road goes Callum Wilson. He finds a gap on the right-hand side. Suddenly, he's down the inside. Hurlock can break later, though. And there's a bit of contact between the two. The Infinity goes sideways and again and again and again. And then Butcher's down the inside as well. They're effectively 3 wide at that point. Echelon formation, boys. And then we've got Platt behind them in 5th. The whole top 5 covered by about 2 car lengths now. They're all moving around on the straight. Who's going to hit who? Somehow they end up single file. Platt's coming down the inside of Butcher. Wilson is just covering off that inside line enough. But look, Hurlock is almost coming to a stop, trying not to run into the back of Matt Richards, who somehow still leads this race, Aidan.
Matt's trying to make that BMW as wide as humanly possible as Hurlock is in the hurry up again. Maybe a little bit of bump drafting. Oh, he's going to... Ooh! It's a bit close. I thought Matt was going to come across and just get pit manoeuvred into the old pit wall here. Is behind. Oh, that was a bit of a Larry one, wasn't it? The car just going full slalom. Those 4 cars or 5 cars, all in a shot of taking the lead of this race. I think Hurlock's got it done here. Those wet tyres are not hanging on anymore.
He's just got that superior bit of grip, and once he gets the clean track in front of him, he can use every inch of performance he's got out of that car right now and then start to break away. Here's Ben Willis, who is cutting through the order as well. He's just gone through past the Zancho cars, as again we end up with 3 wide scenario here. Somehow Butcher's making this work as well, actually. He's on the outside of this. He's on the same tyres, actually, as Hurlock. They're side by side. Now it's Astra versus Astra for the lead. He's later on the brakes into Brooklands. Oh, and Butcher's mugged him. Butcher's absolutely mugged him with a cutback there. Hurlock's been his own worst enemy into Luffield as well, into the side of him there. Callum Wilson gives him a bit of a kiss as Hurlock now stays on the inside line. But somehow, we were saying before that Chris Butcher's not quite having the performance we expected. Well, he's made this work, hasn't he? And look at Platt going past Richards. It's like a different car, completely different class.
Richards was like leading by about nearly 3 seconds, and then the lead just evaporated. Butcher's now leading, Platt's in 2nd, Richards now 3rd. And Richards is in danger of losing 3rd and the podium completely, because the better exit has been had here. Richards could be down as low as 5th by the end of this lap.
He could indeed. Hurlock looking really good right now, but like I say, he was his own worst enemy into Brooklands last time round. He was the one that was spearheading the run from all of the dry tyre sort of wearing cars, and then he's overdone it a little bit at the prospect of Chris Butcher taking the win away from him. There's only 2 laps to go after this, and suddenly the battle between Richards and Callum Wilson has just sort of been reignited again. But it's not for the race lead as we expected it to be earlier on. It's for 4th position between these pair right now, as the other 3 with the dry tyres on disappear up the road. Let's keep our eye out for where Ben Willis ends up as well. But this is Dylan Platt right behind Chris Butcher with this lap that they're going on to now, and then 1 more to go. So not long at all, about 2 minutes this race left to go, Aidan. Do you think Hurlock, if these 2 battle, could eventually get reeled back into this?
Could possibly. It's about to happen. Oh, that's a good move.
Very, very good.
Fair play. Oh, switch back.
Yep, and he's tried to come across too far, hasn't he, on the right as Dylan. And Butcher's bounced off the side of him. I know Chris won't be pleased with that one, but as Nick has predicted already, Hurlock is now right back in this. 3 cars for the lead with 1 to go in slightly slippery conditions. This is going to get sketchy, I think, as Platt now holds on. Butcher fills that gap only just. Wow, there was nearly contact there. Flipping heck, I don't know how he managed to fit an Astra in that gap, but it must have been a perfectly sized gap between the 2. 1 lap to go now, Aidan, and to be honest, Dylan Platt's done a great job to get up to where he is, but he needs to hold on.
Yeah, Butcher's under attack from Hurlock now, but it's got to hold on for 1 more lap. The last lap's always the hardest when you're leading, because you don't want to get complacent, you want to keep the guy behind. It's even worse when they're less than half a second behind, but safely through Copse. probably not got the best run out, as Ben Willis is trying to overtake Wilson now and trying to take Richards at the same time. Those wets are dead. So Richards is going to start sliding down, but at least Matt will have less weight for race 2. So dry tyres, less weight, probably back at the front again. Oh, almost. Close.
Yeah, that was a scary moment there for Wilson, just coming off the brakes a little bit to try and get back down the inside of Willis into Maggots and Beckett's. Herlock looks down the inside of Butcher, and that's perfect for Platt, because that could mean that he takes the win here in this one. As he comes round Luffield once more, he's got quite the gap as well at the front of this. Dylan Platt, who's only scored 7 points so far this season, pulls off the strategy, makes it work, and he's going to take the win in the first race of the night here at Silverstone in the VMO TCUK. The Levorg is back on top, and it's the two Astras filling the podium of Herlock and Butcher. And behind them, Ben Willis is just not able to get past Matt Richards before the line. Richards holds on for 4th position. Callum Wilson is going to finish in 6th place. But wow, that race certainly threw up a lot towards the end there, Aidan. That was an absolute corker to get us started this evening.
Yeah, with the rain still lingering around, it might get heavier in race 2. You never know. So got some really good unpredictable weather. But this is what the BTCC is about, or TCUK is about, with these kinds of cars. With the weather being as British as it gets, anything can happen, and that's why it's so great.
Yes, indeed, and of course with the tyre choices as well, you know, the drivers have to stick to quite the strict sort of regulations on that, and it's great that with touring car racing, you know, we have the hybrid situation, but we also have ballast on top of that as well, which is lovely to see. Admittedly, I'm not a fan of the fact that the ballast has been completely eradicated in the real world regs. I think it was a fantastic playing field leveler, and that's the thing with touring cars. Some people say it's quite complicated with your reverse grids and other things, but I don't think it's that bad at all. It just makes for exciting racing no matter what you see. There's your race result then. Dylan Platt takes the win for the first time this season ahead of Daniel Herlock and Chris Butcher. Having a quick look down, and I think, no, it's not Herlock's first podium, it's his 6th podium of the season. Matt Richards, car 4 P4, ahead of Ben Willis in 5th, just overtaking Callum Wilson on the final lap. Then we had the two Zancho Simsport Ford Focuses of Ross McGregor and Dan Kell. Following them was Thomas Vack in the number 66 RSR machine, and John Munro rounds out the top 10. And don't forget, he started that race on pole position as well, went completely backwards in that one. Cam Brewster finishes 11th ahead of the two teammates Scott Morris and Johannes Leppit. And we have Phil Morby moving from the back of the grid up to car 14 P14. Jakub Kowalski did not recover much further after getting to 15th place. And Dan Hyde and Chris Cobbett were the last finishers. And unfortunately, Chris's teammate at Vulcan Motors Racing, Kyle Benton, not finishing the race. But still, great prospects for the following two races of the night, rounds 26 and 27 to come though, Aidan. And to be honest, I'm kind of hoping that the rain does come back again, because it just makes for such excitement and great unpredictability, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's like I say, that's what makes the BTCC the BTCC. It's the weather, the cars. Like these are the cars that you can buy from pretty much any showroom in the UK. And like, I don't know about you, but when it was Super Touring, you picked your allegiance based off what your dad drove. So I was a Ford guy, and now you can still identify each car. So that's a Focus, that's a Civic, that's a Subaru, that's an Infinity, even though you can't buy the Infinity anymore. But that's why it's so relatable and why we love it so much, because they are basically cars that have been crashed through at Halfords and then raced.
Absolutely. And I mean, I remember the wonderful story about the fact that John Cleland used to race so passionately and so brilliantly for Vauxhall, of course. But then he owned a Volvo dealership. So when the 850 came out, he says business went through the roof, because people would come in and say, "Is that the car that was racing on the weekend?" And he couldn't sort of turn and say, "Well, no," but because it was, even when it was the estate. So, you know, it really helped the car, and the whole sort of sales performance went through the roof. But still, again, you're absolutely spot on, mate. They are very relatable machines and really enjoyable to watch as race cars. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break here on the VMO TCUK stream, just while we get the next race all prepared and everyone ready to go for one more time this evening. And then we'll be right back with you. So from me, Chaz Draycott and Aidan Millward, and our wonderful producer Mike Yao, we'll see you in a few minutes' time. The VMO TCUK here from Silverstone. Chaz Draycott and Aidan Millward in the commentary box with you, with Mike Yao on production. And we're just about to get set for the second race of the evening. This is going to be the 26th round of this 30 round championship. To be honest though, Aidan, we thought it was going to get a little bit sedate during that first race, especially near the front, but then all of a sudden with the track drying out, it really threw up a curveball, didn't it?
Yeah, track evolution's probably my favourite bit of our Factor 2, with the dynamic racing line and how the weather can dry out over the course of a race depending on where you've driven the car. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one where the track is quite a lot drier than what we saw for race 1.
We've got Dylan Platt starting on the front row from pole position as he finished the first race alongside Daniel Hurlock, with Chris Butcher and Matt Richards on row 2. Then it's Ben Willis and Callum Wilson on row 3 ahead of Ross McGregor and Dan Kell, the two teammates, on the 4th row. Thomas Vack is next up ahead of John Munro, who actually starts this one from 10th. Cam Brewster is 11th with Scott Morris in 12th alongside him on the 6th row of the grid. Next up is Johannes Leppit alongside Phil Morby, car 14, P14. Jakub Kowalski in car 9 will start in 15th place, with Dan Hyde in 16th position, and at the back of the grid in 17th place is Chris Cobbett in the BMW. I've just had a message off John Munro before they set off on this lap, Aidan, and he said, I've not done a single lap in the dry on this track in any stage, so this will be interesting.
Well, if it all goes wrong, we know who to blame.
We do indeed.
But I mean, like, everybody knows Silverstone, even the shorter layouts. I'm sure everybody's raced them at some point. So, I mean, he'll figure it out. Yeah. He'll be right, no problem.
He will indeed. I was once told, actually, I was commentating on a British Supercarts event around here at Silverstone National in the real world, and apparently in the 1997 British Grand Prix, they were supported by the Supercarts. One of them went round cops faster than Villeneuve did in his Williams, which scares the living daylights out of me.
Yeah, cops was a lot tighter back then as well. They actually had to brake and shift into it. It was like a 4th gear corner at that point, but yeah, race about to start. Can't wait for this one.
They're underway, a little bit tentative by the look of it. Fantastic start, though, from the right-hand side of the grid by Hurlock, and then Butcher goes from left to right to left again, and unbelievably, Platt just goes backwards off the start. Matt Richards gets a good getaway as well, goes straight up into 3rd position. A little bit further back, we've got Willis trying to defend from McGregor. That is for his 5th position and 6th position. They're side by side as they go into Maggots and Beckett's. McGregor down the inside in the Zanshow Ford. He's just trying to hope that Willis runs a little bit wide there in the Infinity. Looked like there was a car running quite wide on the exit there. Now, let's not forget they have hybrid availability in the very first lap of this race as well. We don't have to wait for it to be activated like you do in the real world BTCC. So straight away they can attack, as is the mode on the car. But a bit of argy-bargy going on here, but again, a tidy first lap so far. I had to say it, there's a car off in the background, Aidan, one of the Astras.
Yeah, a little bit of door rubbing. I mean, like, again, watching this with my steward's eyeballs as well as my commentator's eyeballs, it's hard to separate, you know, work from fun here. But we've got Matt Richards making a look into the outside of turn 1 here. Can he absolutely mug Chris Butcher around the outside? It's going to be a great move if he can pull it off.
A little bit of argy-bargy by the look of it, runs in wide. He's going to move over, is he? Oh, the kissing wing mirrors as they come down to Beckett's. That BMW's got some great poke, though, in the long run, hasn't it? He's actually alongside Hurlock, around the outside into Maggots and Beckett's. Oh, Butcher down the inside. That's lovely stuff. 3 wide on the exit, Aidan. Now it's a big drag race.
I think Richards might have the better run here, having the longer run around the outside to build up the power. He's going to have the inside for Brooklands. Matt Richards could be back in front of this motor race. And he definitely is. So he should be able to get the virtual pedal to the virtual metal and start to pull away in the way that he hoped he would have done in race 1. But like I was saying earlier, a bit of door rubbing. It's to be expected in these cars. If it gets a bit too aggressive, then you're going to start issuing warnings and things like that. But still, driving standards have been absolutely brilliant today.
Yeah, they've been really good so far, nice and tidy, especially on such a sort of short, quick-fire circuit as this as well. You expect, because we have so many laps, that the drivers take that into consideration and think, maybe I'm going to send it a little bit here in the opening stages. But no, not quite the case this time around. Chris Butcher, 2nd place right now, but you can already see that gap opening up to Matt Richards in front of him, Hurlock 3rd, then it's Platt and Willis in 4th and 5th. Behind them we have McGregor, Kell, Munro, Wilson and Brewster rounding out the top 10. And to be honest, there's not a massive amount of battling going on right now in the top 5. They're just sort of eyeing each other up as well. Butcher eyes up the handbrake there, gets very sideways with the rear end through Brooklands, and that shows you that there's still a little bit of slippery surface just slightly offline through there, so they still have to be a little bit tentative, don't they?
Yeah, I think it is actually still just very, very light rain out there. But rFactor 2's removed the wet percentage indicator that you get, like percentage wet online, percentage wet offline. So now you have to do it by feel like you would do in the real world, which is, again, one of my favourite updates that's come recently, because anything that messes with esport teams' spreadsheets is a win. So they're basically driving with feel, so it really is about the driver's skill right now, as well as setups and things like it. With these things you can mess around with the setup and break the system in a little way. But Matt Richards starting to pull away. He's got nearly a second on Butcher. Butcher basically having a trolley train at the minute with everybody else in behind him, so he might be coming under attack once again, but still had some brilliant racing, and hopefully it continues for all 3 races.
Got Platt starting to slightly close in on Herlock as well. The Levorg is getting closer and closer to the back of the Astra, but you're absolutely right. If you've got any sort of advantage by the fact that you get a definite percentage of how much of the circuit is wet and how much is dry, it's not realistic in my eyes. And it brings me back to a story a while ago about during another sim with the Indy 500 that it was simulating. Drivers were complaining that other drivers were getting a bit of cloud cover on their laps and they weren't. But that's just the weather. You can't control the weather. They were demanding fixed weather, so everybody got exactly the same temperature on track at all times, and it didn't change. But you can't do that in the real world, so why, if you want to replicate it that well, don't do it in the sim either. I think it's great that we have the cloud cover and everything. It changes realistically now. We've got gorgeous day-night cycles. We've got weather that gets progressively worse. It doesn't just suddenly switch on and rain. The circuit doesn't suddenly dry out. It's all progressive and very realistic, and I think, to be honest, some people like the fact that sometimes you can mess with that and get exact figures and have everything right all the time. But for me, I'd rather it be a bigger challenge to these drivers, and in a bit of a sadistic way, maybe watch them struggle a little bit.
Well, saying that, Butcher had quite the snap going through Brooklands there, and almost messed up Luffield as well. So maybe feeling a little bit of the pressure from Herlock and Platt there, but they're going to maybe put in an attack very soon. It looks like that Platt's trying to have a sniff into Maggots and Beckers. Behind them, the Zancho's trying to mug one of the drag racing cars. But we're still watching this little battle here. As you can see, the Levorg just sniffing and slithering, trying to get something. Maybe see one hell of a send into Brooklands on this lap.
Keeping our eye now on how the car behaves, and it's just when it grabs the brake a little bit, isn't it? He seems to be a lot smoother that time round. There's a bit of a Zancho train going on in the background. The focus is all over one of the BMWs, which is Ben Willis in 7th position, and Callum Wilson in this as well in the Infinity. And apologies, yeah, it's not the BMW Ben Willis. I'm so used to seeing him in a BMW. It's actually the Infinity.
Monroe's out.
He's in, and John Monroe has disconnected from the race apparently. Oh heck. Well, that's what we say is like a simulated engine failure technically, isn't it really? And it's such a shame for John. Such a shame. And this is the thing, it can often come out of the blue, can't it? Absolutely out of the blue, out of nowhere. But so can an engine failure, I guess.
Yeah, it's he's not had the best of luck this season. Theoretically, it's one of his 2 homegrown, or 3 home races of the season. The 2 Silverstone rounds, because he lives in the Toaster area. That's not how you overtake. It's the other sim you use to do the grass mowing.
Yes.
And that probably need to get another look at that one. But yeah, the Knockhill and the 2 Silverstone rounds being his home races, so it's not great for him that he's having these issues. But like you say, some drivers have bad luck all season. I think Nico Rosberg 2015 just couldn't catch a break that season, just absolutely dominated. So he's probably having just one of those seasons really, as Herlock tries to avoid upsetting the track limit gods there. But
disconnected as well. Sorry.
Yeah, it looks like it has.
Yeah, he's just put in the Discord as well that he's been disconnected. It's not like his internet's gone or anything, but he's apparently been sort of thrown out of the server by a connection issue, unfortunately. So hopefully that doesn't affect anything further. But I'm afraid It's just racing at this point, and that's esports as well. That's what happens is behind there, Platt and McGregor side by side. Platt throws the Subaru down the inside. Very, very close indeed. You mentioned the toaster area earlier, actually, Aidan. I just call it the kitchen, to be honest with you, but I do spend a lot of time there. But yeah, we've got another great display here of cars that are very different. We've got rear-wheel drive long boy versus sort of short front-wheel drive chunky boy fighting each other as the two Infinities swap position. That is Cam Brewster going past Ben Willis, is it not?
Yeah, it definitely is. See the very realistic writing on the windows there, using the exact same font. So Helvetica for the name, and then Impact for the numbers, as is used in real life. So you can identify your favourite driver, which is probably one of the great bits about touring car racing. It just needs that fluorescent strip now for the pit stop.
Yes, it does.
As Cobbett is in the pit lane, has been there for some time, so must have picked up a bit of damage. Getting that fixed, or maybe he's picked the wrong tyres and he's just thinking, oh, better get rid of those before someone throws me out of the race. But Dylan Platt in that the butcher train, or all aboard the butcher bus, I guess, if trolley train butcher bus. So they're going to start trying to want to get past him, but he's making that Astra pretty wide at the minute.
If Platt gets to the front, it'd be the Platt parade, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I've got splinters from the bottom of the barrel for that one. Herlock in third place, though. He's sort of stuck in the middle right now because he's got that very evil-looking Subaru behind him, and there, the Bunda of Butcher in that Astra in front of him, very much filling the screen. But again, look, you can see a bit of tentativeness on the brakes into Maggots and Beckett's. Doesn't quite work out for him. And now into the slipstream goes Daniel Herlock, but it looks like Butcher's got a really good run off the corner. Wow, that car looks like it's just disappearing off over the horizon, to be honest with you. Hard on the brakes again into Brooklands. It's another corner where you want to turn in as early as possible, but it's actually quite a late apex to get it lined up nicely for Luffield. And no matter how many times you go around there, or at least I find anyway, how many times I go around there, it always catches me out. I think, oh, it's just one long, smooth corner. I'll turn in a bit earlier this time. And then there's that really pointy bit where the actual apex is, and you need to be careful. Look at them all on the hybrid, though, Aidan. They're all really attacking this right now.
Yeah, and the hybrid is for the whole race, I believe. I actually, admittedly, haven't had much time to play around with that through doing other things as well as YouTube stuff, as the Zanchos are joining in on this party now. It's, yeah, they're all having a nice day. It's almost like one of those track days where you're not allowed to overtake. But you just got to stay. Oh, Butcher's gone wide. And that's going to not put him in good stead for this run down the Wellington straight towards Brooklands, as Richard's just enjoying himself up front at the minute.
Yeah, he's opened up that gap now and started to disappear away from everybody as this battle starts to erupt behind. But Herlock needs to be careful now, because if he starts making moves on Butcher, Platt will take the advantage straight away, and he's going to try and come through. But then Platt needs to be careful of McGregor. McGregor needs to be careful of his teammate Dan Kell, but he's going to be grateful for the fact that it's his teammate behind him and not just some foreign team driver sitting there all over the back of him waiting to take advantage. At least he's got a bit of a rear gunner there in Dan Kell, but Chris Butcher's having to work very hard indeed to keep fellow Astra driver Herlock behind him, and Herlock needs to wait and pick his moment. You can see cars a lap down there ahead of Matt Richards, who's barely in the shot at the moment because he's that far ahead. The Infinities are starting to queue up behind the Fords now as well. It's actually quite neat and tidy in terms of manufacturers, because we've got the Astras leading the Subaru, the Fords leading the Infinities, and then at the back of it, spoiling the symmetry, we've got Phil Morby in the very garish blue and red machine trying to get involved as well.
It's like Noah's Ark at the minute, going 2x2 onto the boat. Butcher's not had the best run through Brooklands again, maybe just trying to defend a little bit through Luffield to prevent the run out the other side, as full Tokyo drift in the background from the Subaru.
That was
that was beautiful.
That was
well
great.
held.
I know, that was mad sideways from Dylan Platt, but it sort of started to glide into it, and it looked like one of those moments where the car breaks away so slowly that you don't notice at first, and you think, you know, I'll put my foot in a little bit and, you know, just get the rear end around a bit. But it just kept going and going and going, and then it got to a point he held it, and then suddenly it looked like he got a really good punch out of the corner as the traction was suddenly laid down into the road. So hats off to Dylan Platt. He really, really sorted that out nicely, but he started to lose a little bit of ground there as he actually comes out of Maggots. And, well, to be honest, we've got Herlock all over the back of Butcher again, but I must say, he's not really proactively defending like mad here, Chris Butcher, but he's just putting the car in the right place at the right time. He may not be as quick as the guys behind, clearly, but he's doing the right job, isn't he? And he's still sat there and staying ahead of them, and that's the main thing.
He's fast enough in the right spots.
Yeah.
Which, covering off Brooklands and Luffield is probably where he's going to get nailed on the exit or whatever. So he's keeping it nice and tidy, not defending too overly aggressively as we've seen at other rounds this season. And just for reference, that lapped car we saw, that's Cobbett, who's been in the pit lane. He also picked up a penalty, which I assume was for speeding in the pit lane, because he got it just as he was coming out. So it's not been a good race for Cobbett, but with 15 cars in the race, he's guaranteed to score at least 1 point for just for finishing. So it's not all bad, but Butcher is losing a lot of time. That gap is now 3.5 to Richards up front, as Brewster and Wilson fighting into Brooklands here.
Infinity
Nothing's going to work out here, but still Chris Butcher. That gap now 4 seconds, so he's losing about half a second or so. So Butcher's not having a good time out there, as there looks to be a move happening between Platt and Herlock.
Yeah, Platt just got his nose down the inside, but Herlock carried the speed around the outside of Woodcote and managed to stay just in front of him, just about getting rid of the overlap. But Platt's trying it again, and now the Zanshow focuses are ganging up on him as well. McGregor goes through on the left-hand side before they even get into Beckett's. He's hard on the brakes. He's got the Subaru bashing into the back of that Ford, but he's through. Really good opportunistic stuff by Ross McGregor. Goes up into 4th place, and now he's going to try and make a move on these 2 Astras ahead of him. He's thinking, right, you've had long enough now, Dylan, to try and get this done, mate. Watch this. This is how you do it. And really watch this.
Whoa.
Throws it down the inside of Herlock. It wasn't too late to annoy anybody, really, but that was a very sudden move, and he's done it. Oh, no, but he's come back across the front of Herlock. Herlock slides the Astra down the inside.
That's a penalty. That's a bump and run.
He just had that tiny little touch, didn't he, that unsettled him there, but now all of a sudden he finds himself back in it. Dan Kell's boxed in on the inside. Callum Wilson's there trying to go around the outside. Do they all know they're 3 wide? Callum's got to back out of it, get back on the circuit. Suddenly the Zanshow cars are side by side. Kell's on the inside of McGregor. They nearly lean on each other. And wow, somehow they've, well, not quite sorted it all out, because Wilson and Platt are now slapping into the side of each other.
Meanwhile, Chris Butcher's probably breathed a hefty sigh of relief, because all of that's just giving him a little bit more. But even then, that gap is still going up by about half a second per lap. So Butcher's not having a good time out there. He's managed to pull just a little bit, maybe about half a second, as McGregor's now ahead of Herlock for round 2 into Brooklands. But I think that's Herlock. It's been done by both the focuses. Don't make any more contact.
Oh, there was. I could just hear the sigh of, oh God, I've got to sort this out.
Only if it's reported, though.
That's true.
It's not reported. I'm not looking at it.
There you go. You've heard it here first. Well, I'm sure they've all heard it before anyway, to be fair. But yeah, Cal and Herlock just bouncing off each other a little bit through Luffield. And now again, Dylan Platt late on the brakes, tries to go around the outside of Callum Wilson. Callum's got to leave him the space. And to be fair, Platt's done a pretty decent job not to go too far off the road. And oh no, that's Cam Brewster going off the road indeed to go through.
Oh,
Callum Wilson has to come over to the left. Platt just about gets into the back of him. Phil Morby's involved now behind the pair of them. Wow, how did they all still make it into Beckett's there, Aidan? That was a bit of a miracle.
No clue, as McGregor and Keller swap places. I don't know if there was a bit of team orders going on there. But it looks like Kell can now attack Butcher. 9/10 of a second between the 2 of them, as there's a lock up there for McGregor. You can identify the 2 Zanshow drivers, not just from the numbers on the car, but also the fact that Dan's got the red, which is probably the same colour as his Ford Sierra that he races in real life on the sort of front splitter, and then Ross has got or John Ross, whichever one it is. I know they're driving the same car, but he's got more of a turquoisey, sky blue, cyany, paddling pooly type of colour on the bumper as well. So
paddling,
just little details that
Chaz didn't notice.
That Chaz doesn't notice, and you're the pro here. God.
Oh, it's mere pixels. Yeah, please. Honestly, I'm leaning forward into the screen now to try and notice. This is a fantastic train of cars we've got going on here, though, behind it all. We've got McGregor, Brewster, Herlock, Wilson, Platt, and then Morby. And then even behind Morby as well, we've got Ben Willis. Johannes Lepit's just moved up ahead of Jakub Kowalski. Everybody's fanning out and trying to get one over on each other down the straight as nearly contact between Wilson and Herlock, as down the inside of Platt has gone Morby. I think Platt might have overdone it on the tyres in the early stages here, Aidan, and killed them off because he suddenly got no pace compared to the rapid machine that he had underneath him before.
Yeah, and just look at that. Kel's just mugged Butcher into Cop's corner. That gap just disintegrated. He's in front before the corner, so tyres destroyed probably on that Vauxhall. But all through the grid there is something going on. This is the best part. Something's going on as Herlock is going to pick up a cheeky track limit infringement for that little run-off there.
You're absolutely right there. There is always something going on in this sort of racing, and that's the beauty of it. You know, you've got different cars with different capabilities and positives and negatives about them. But you've also got the different tyre choices and drivers that manage them all in different ways as well, in changing conditions. There's so many variables. It's wonderful to see as Brewster throws it up the inside of McGregor in the focus there. There's a bit of contact between Morby and Wilson behind as well. Wilson got a lot of understeer on the way into the corner, just sort of drifted wide into the side of the focus. But Morby's been constantly moving forward over the course of this race meet, and it's going to be great to see if he gets a reverse grid pole out of this, because it's anywhere, I believe, from 6th to 12th, is it not?
It is correct.
Can get reversed. So Morby's right in the thick of it there, so he'll get a decent position either way, unless it's only 6th or 7th at the moment, so chances are in his favour. Callum Wilson now on to lap 20, just watching Herlock behind try and stick with Brewster and McGregor, who are having a fantastic ding-dong. And now we've got lap traffic in the mix as well, as Chris Cobbett has started to be lapped by the top 3 as Herlock nearly into the back of McGregor. Brewster goes through and the train gets even longer.
Yeah, the battling's helping Butcher, so Butcher might still hold on to 3rd. 2 seconds between him and Brewster at the minute. But yeah, Chris Cobbett's going to have to get out of the way. He will get the notifications of blue flags. It's actually quite rare that we do see lapped cars like this. He's not having fun, but he's still plugging on and finishing. Doesn't rage quit, so fair play to him for that. Yeah, very rare that we do see lap traffic in this series. So it's just get out of the way. Don't interfere with anybody else. And at least it's happening at Silverstone rather than somewhere like Brands Hatch where there is nowhere to move over.
Yeah, that's very true indeed. And yeah, you're absolutely right though. You know, with any sort of online racing series, if you are just circling around at the back on your own, it can get very frustrating, very lonely, and you think, oh, what's the point? But that's exactly it. You can get a point, for finishing in a lot of series when you have a sort of a generous point system. You can even pick up a few, but a lot of the time in championships like this, if you are up there in that top 15, then you are going to at least score points in the long run. And, when you are a bit further down the order, that 1 point can make an even bigger difference than it could at the very top of the championship as well. I mean, we've all seen championships decided on 1, even half a point sometimes, so you have to go and get every single one that you can. We look here at the RSR machine. Very good looking car, I must say that, Astra, of Daniel Herlock. I really like that livery. He's been right in the thick of it all throughout this race, after starting 2nd on the grid. Still right up there inside the top 10. And nice stuff by Cobbett there to move over to one side, lets the train through. That's really wise stuff as well, as we're already onto the final lap here, Aidan. I can't believe it's come around that quickly already. Yeah,
22 laps, just over a minute a lap-ish. So that adds up to about like the 20 to 25 minutes that we expect from these kinds of races. Bit of a lock up there from the Astra of Herlock. Doesn't slam into the back of the Ford that's in front of him. But now actually Brewster's on the back of Butcher and he's going to take that position. So no pace from that Astra this evening. I don't know what's going on with Chris today.
Brewster's going to be on the outside here. Is he going to either get a cutback or go around the outside into Luffield? No, not quite. He's going to have to try and mug him out of the final corner, but a little bit further up the road, as we expected in race 1, but didn't quite get to see. Matt Richards is going to take his 7th win of the season, extends his championship lead even further. Fantastic performance. Dan Kell, reigning champion, recovers and makes 2nd place of that one. And then behind him, we've got Butcher taking the podium. We're ahead of Brewster, and then behind him, the massive train that is McGregor, Herlock, Wilson, Morby, Platt, Willis, and then Johannes Lepit is just outside of the top 10. But I tell you what, we have to give a big round of applause to everybody in that big train there, because no matter what happened and no matter how much contact there was and all the shuffling, all of them finished the race and still very close together. That was top-level entertainment, that.
Absolutely, which is what we came here to see tonight.
For sure.
And Scott Morris getting a bit drifty out of left field, so something with that Subaru is quite drifty, but it's all part of the entertainment value, isn't it?
Absolutely is, yeah. We love the Subaru, and it is a big old boat of a car, but it's still a very potent race car as well, as we saw earlier. And, well, he decides that he's going to get somebody to pay for that sponsor sorting and get some big airtime for the Levorg. More airtime, though, was not really on the menu, actually, there for Matt Richards, but the Aerostream Motorsport machine gets the job done and takes win number 7 this season. Dan Kell, second place in the race, second place in the championship, and he really needs to start reeling Matt in further if he's going to take the fight to him in the last round of the season. Chris Butcher finishes third, another podium for him, well held on ahead of Cam Brewster and just about everybody else, to be fair to Chris. That was a great defensive driving. Ross McGregor finishes in 5th ahead of Daniel Hurlock. In 6th position, Callum Wilson ended up 7th ahead of Phil Morby, who continues to move further up. Let's see what the reverse grid's like for Phil and see if it goes in his favour. Dylan Platt 9th and Ben Willis in 10th. You could have honestly just shuffled that sort of top 10 as many times as you wanted and probably just got a similar result anyway. It was all over the place with all of the battling that was going on throughout that one. 11th place went the way of Johannes Lepit in the other of the... I believe he was in the Subaru, was he not? No, he's in one of the Infinities, isn't he? Anyway, Jakub Kowalski next up. Thomas Vack in 13th position ahead of Scott Morris and Chris Cobbett. And unfortunate disconnections for John Munro and Dan Hyde at the same time, which hopefully we do not see again. But it's a real shame to lose drivers like that through no fault of their own, isn't it?
Yes, but like you say, it's the equivalent of a drive shaft blowing or the gearbox failing or running out of... Well, I mean, you can run out of fuel, but like fuel pressure problem, oil pressure problem. It's as close as we get, because none of these sims have that modelled. But I guess you have the wheel disconnect, the disconnect from the server, and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's just one of those things. But he'll be back for race 3.
He will indeed, and we are going to get a reverse grid very shortly. I'm going to keep my eye out and see what that is during the break. But I believe we're just going to go for a quick 10-minute interval again before we come back for the 27th and final race of the night. Aidan and I, with Mike Cow on production, will see you very shortly. Hello again, everybody. Chaz Draycott and Aidan Millward here for the VMO TCUK, the Pixelate VMO TCUK series of 2022, here at Silverstone National with Mike Yao on production for the final race of the night, round 27 of the 2022 season. And to be honest, Aidan, we've had an absolute belter so far. The first race was great because of the changing conditions. The second race was great because of that massive train of cars we had in the midfield. And now we've got a bit of a reverse grid to go with it. Only 6 cars swapped around, though. And this third race, well, it's usually the feistiest one of the lot, isn't it?
Yeah, race 3 is always the one, because the people that usually win, they're a bit further back, so they've got to fire their way through. So we usually see some great overtaking and some moves, or you could just see someone do a Turkington and just take the maximum that you need. But the grid on your screen there, so Willis, Wilson, McGregor, Dan Kell, it was 8th position that was that drew the lucky dip, I guess. Tomasz Vak on his debut in the series. He's in 9th with YouTube's John Monroe in 10th, Cameron Brewster for drag racing in 11th, and someone else was there in 12th. But 13 is Johannes Leppert, Phil Morby with Team Atgani. That stands for All the Gear and No Idea, which is a great name because it just sounds Italian, which is great. Jakub Kowalski in there as well, and Chris Cobbett after that absolutely awful race 2. He's got another chance to make up some places in race 3.
I think some of that might not have updated in time because we've actually got Herlock on pole position. Most of them were right, but there was like 1 or 2 that were in a different place there for some reason. We've got Kowalski and Vak he's actually 13th but showed up on there as 9th, but the rest of them seem to be correct, which is a strange one, but still everyone making their way round to the grid now to line up. Herlock right near the front of the grid again this evening. He's got McGregor alongside him, who's going to be definitely hoping for a race victory. So far this season, Ross McGregor hasn't taken a win, but he's had 5 podium appearances, 1 at Snetterton, 1 at Croft, 1 at Thruxton, and 2 of them here at Silverstone. So he's going to want 1 higher now to take the race victory outright. There is the view from John Monroe's car in the bottom right of your shot, and we're underway for the 27th round of the 2022 season, final race of the night, and it looks like a solid start by Herlock. He gets a really good launch and manages to stay in front in towards turn 1. There's Brewster around the outside of Matt Richards as well. Brewster didn't get the initial launch off the line, it seems, and Butcher's actually got ahead as into Beckett goes Ross McGregor down the inside, which becomes the outside. No, he's turned across the front of Herlock, and now Butcher's going to try and take advantage of this indeed. Can he find the gap in the middle? No, he goes to the gap around the outside. Everybody else seemingly keeping it nice and tidy. You can see Morby's car poking out there, but again, feisty stuff straight away, Aidan, but no one falling by the wayside.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the driving standards tonight have been absolutely impeccable. Compared to other rounds we've had where we've had to have some words about people being too overly aggressive, but Ross McGregor is currently in the lead of this race. Dan Kell has just moved up into 3rd. He's all over the back of Chris Butcher, who was his championship rival for last season, but McGregor half a second to the good at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, he's doing a great job, and Kell is now side by side with Herlock as well, who's tried to take advantage of that little battle going on. There's bollards and all sorts being chucked completely off the scenery to the right-hand side of our shot there. Everybody making their way around Copse once more. Kell does move up into 3rd place. Richards is 5th at the moment. The other side of Herlock, he's got Brewster just behind him in 6th spot. Then we've got Callum Wilson. Oh, McGregor takes a very deep inside line there through Beckett's, clips a bit of the grass as well, running all over the curb. And look at it now, he moves over to the right to try and break the slipstream as soon as possible. There's one 20-wheeled car further back in the order as 5 of them are completely nose to tail. You've got to love the depth of field effects as well on our factor. The blur is just gorgeous. They've really, really nailed it compared to a bunch of other sims, to be fair. McGregor, though, well, he's nailed this start, to be honest with you. And he's going to be praying now, isn't he, Aidan, that Kell has a go at Butcher and just saves him that bit of aggro for now in these opening laps.
Yeah, that's what I'd want Dan Kell to be doing right now. Is Dan has a lot of real-world experience, going to a lot of racetracks with his dad, and to paraphrase a certain British touring car commentator, I know his dad. Great guy, and like Dan knows how to handle a virtual and real-world motor car, so he's definitely got the experience. And with 0.3 of a second between him and Butcher, an attack might be happening soonish, as attack mode lights up the timing screen here. You can barely see the cars because everyone's using it.
Yeah, indeed, everyone using the hybrid as much as they can early on to really establish their positions in this race. get overtaking moves done while the field is nice and close together. That's the thing. You don't want it to spread out, and then all you have to do later on in the race is use your hybrid to sort of fill the gap ahead of you rather than using it to overtake someone directly. But again, we find Butcher thrown straight into a defensive scenario. Dan Kell not on the hybrid here as he comes around Woodcote once more. He doesn't need to use it as much because he's in the slipstream of that Astra in front of him, but he knows now that his teammate is starting to break away at the front. He'll know as well after that second race of the night that Astra really isn't looking strong around here this evening. The THR machine certainly having to work very, very hard, but there's so many other drivers in the background having a good old scrap in there. We've got Willis having to go at Morby with Dylan Platt involved in the Subaru as well, as Kell tries to open the door down the inside, doesn't quite make it work, but boy, he's getting close on occasion here to overtaking the man in second place, Chris Butcher.
Yeah, yellow in sector 2, so that's around that region. Maybe someone's just had a bit of a half spin or something like that. Colbert's up into 15, so he's having a better time already. As Dan Kell trying to mosey around the outside of Chris Butcher, goes onto the little Astra turbo. Here comes Matt Richards in that black BMW, just stealthily in. I mean, like, stealthily. He's driving that thing like it's an SR71 with the speed it's got. It's absolute rocket ship, that BMW. This is what happened. That's a... well, that's a report. I can see that as Cobbett is out of the race. That's a shame.
He is indeed, yeah. Morris just going past him now on the timing tower up into 16th position. But yeah, Scott Morris getting a bit of a headbutt into Beckett's, and hopefully no headbutting going on here as Kell goes down the inside of Butcher, makes it move. Butcher goes for the cutback though, tries to slot in behind the Focus once more, moves over to the right hand side on the back straight. Matt Richards is going to get a double helping of the slipstream whichever way he wants to go here. Sticks to the left-hand side of the circuit, then moves over to the right. He's going to try and open up Brooklands as much as possible. Puts his nose down the inside of the Astra, and he's there. And, well, there's not much room to fill the gap, but he does it. He just needs to be careful now he doesn't come across the front of Butcher as well. He gets sideways, though, into Luffield, drifts the car all the way around, and that's the sort of noise anybody would be making behind the wheel. And look at how he slots back in there. That was lovely stuff, Aidan. He might not have made the place, but it was stylish.
Well, Matt actually does a lot of drifting in Assetto Corsa.
He does, yes.
He's well suited to that kind of thing. It's all kicking off in behind. Matt Richards wants another win today. Even with, he's carrying like the maximum amount of ballast.
Oh wow!
And he's fighting that Vauxhall like there's nothing on it, as he's now taken the position. Now Richards and Kell, teammates at Zancho, but they're racing separately this season. Matt's figured something out with that BMW, hasn't he?
He really has. I mean, the run that he got out of Cox was unbelievable. And it just seemed like Butcher did not have an answer for him at all. And Matt managed to get rid of the overlap by the time they broke into Beckett's. There's Callum Wilson just glancing the back of Hurlock's Astra, very close to him. The epic battle that's going on behind is actually the two Drake Racing cars having a good old ding-dong with Platt as well. There's no gap there, Callum. He tries to manufacture one down the inside at least, but Dylan Platt has had these two Drake Racing Infinities all over him. He was ahead of Ben Willis earlier on. He's just got the better of Cam Brewster, and Brewster's actually lost a place in the long run because of that. Munro has come all the way back up from the back of the grid into 10th position. Morby's actually gone down from 8th down to 11th. It's the first race tonight where he's probably up for finish. Well, he's not up for it, but he's going to be finishing lower than where he started, because he was right at the back of the field at the start of the night, finished 14th, then he finished 8th. Now, unfortunately, at this point, he's down to 11th again.
Probably get it back. Was it Stingray? Anything can happen in the next half hour. So it's. I mean, like Phil Morby's like a very much improved driver over the last couple of seasons. Season 1, he was involved in accidents left, right, and centre and things like that. But he's really sorted himself out. He's actually a really solid driver at the minute, doing really well. So fair play to him. I just wish I could.
No. That's a paddling.
That's a paddling.
Yeah.
Saw that, Ben.
Well, the thing was there is that Platt was so sideways on the exit of Brooklands, and it was amazing to watch. And they flicked the car the other way, but then Ben put his nose down the inside. But I think Platt was still having a slide, so when the car did eventually straighten out, it was already in front of where Ben was. But yeah, I don't think Ben had the patience for that scenario there. Like you said, though, we had two Zansho teammates here, effectively. Matt Richards all over the back of Dan Kell, reigning champion at the moment, second in the championship, ahead of current championship leader in that BMW, Matt Richards. 7 race victories so far this season for Matt. Nobody else has got more than 3. Dan Kell only has 2, with 6 podiums, but Dan's other point-scoring performances have been so consistent. That's why he's right up there in the title fight. So 1-2 for Zansho at the moment, which makes me happy, and I'm sure you as well, Aidan, at the moment.
Absolutely.
Technically, technically a 1-2-3 as well. But I must say, one of my drivers of the evening at the moment has to be Herlock. He's in 4th position here. Here's that moment before for Platt. You can see it gets sideways again. He straightens it up. Then all of a sudden he's back in shot sideways, and you can see the nose is pointed further in than the apex. The car is already going around, and there's that tiny little kiss. And unfortunately, with it being a rear-wheel drive car, that's all it needs to go around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not like the party trick that you have with... oh, hello, this is Matt Richards making his way up into 2nd place.
Yes, indeed. And
that thing looks so... Like, because we're watching it on Discord, and the thing's all compressed because Discord. That BMW looks so sinister with the lights on. It's like something like Knight Rider or Transformers or something like that. It's just...
It's like a middle-class Batmobile, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is like Batmobile on finance, to be honest with you.
The Batmobile Retmobile.
Yeah, that's it. But Herlock right now, he's just queuing up behind Kell and Richards to try and have a go. Then you've got Callum Wilson in there as well. And Chris Butcher, well, he's not able to really have an attack. He's just sort of waiting for the fireworks to go on in front of him so he can then try and take advantage of it. But there is a big gap behind them, so they don't need to worry too much at this point about trying to open the door in front of them or try and go for a move. The only problem is when you've got a car right up behind you. If you risk a move, you can compromise yourself and then lose a place when you've been trying to gain one. So with this bit of daylight behind them, they might have a bit more confidence here. But Herlock, honestly, I'll say it again, it's been really one of my drivers tonight to really keep an eye on, one of my favourite drivers to watch, because he's just always been in the thick of it. But no matter what, he's always been up there as well, you know. He's not lost a massive amount throughout all of it.
Yeah, he's kind of like the sleeper of the grid at the minute. He's just there. It's like, oh, he's there. Okay, that's cool. But he's holding everybody up. He's having a crack at the champion. Callum Wilson as well. He's done really well this season, being up there and things like that. But I'm like, Butcher's now dropped back to 6th. So probably just maybe some people just don't have time to prepare, to practice for that kind of thing. So maybe it's just an off weekend, but an off day for him. I know he's racing in GPVWC, so a different type of car completely, going backwards and forwards. I mean, I tried to do that last season, and Brands Hatch happened, so yeah, I can only commit to one series at a time. But fair play to these people that can drive multiple cars one day and then another day and stuff like that. So can't fault Chris Butcher, but today it's just not been one of those days.
Just want to bring your attention to the unbelievable amount of pace that Herlock's Astra had as he came out of Luffield and across Woodcote. He drove around the outside of Dan Kell and then slotted in front of him before they got down to turn 1 and made it look absolutely effortless. And Herlock is really on a mission here, on for another podium. Coming into this race meeting, he had 5 this season and 1 race victory, which he got, actually, funnily enough, at race 3 at Silverstone last time we were here earlier in the championship. I don't think he's going to get that at this point. 10 laps to go. He's only, well, I suppose he's only 3.6 seconds off McGregor, but to get up there, he first needs to get past Matt Richards. And I think everybody knows that unless you've got very different tyres on in specific conditions like we had earlier, that's a very tough prospect no matter how you look at it in that BMW. You said it before yourself, Aidan, that Matt just has found something in that BM to make it really click. And right now he's showing that with it being at the top of the standings and second in this race.
Well, if you can have a crack, you can have a crack. You know, you take it, wouldn't you? It's like GP laps with his historic league where he beat Jernej Simončić on pace. So if you get the opportunity to have a go at someone, I mean, Matt Richards, he did Virtual Le Mans in 2020. He's done all sorts of stuff. So he's a very well-rounded driver, competes in a wide variety of stuff. So if you're someone like that and you think, oh, Matt Richards, yeah, I'll have a crack at him, why not? But that's racing, isn't it? He's like, you want to get as far up as you can. So if Herlock wants second, Herlock can go for second. He's got the pace to do it, so go for it.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, I've seen so many arguments and discussions recently about what drivers are entitled to or whose corner it is on a racetrack and so on. And it always makes me think, well, it's a racetrack. They can put the car wherever they want. People saying things like, oh, you don't overtake at that corner, or you don't go for a move there. But it's a racetrack. You put the car wherever you want. You attack whoever you want on the racetrack whenever you want. That's the whole point of it. You've got to try and overtake the people around you. It's not who's entitled to what and where, and places you should and shouldn't do it. Drivers are entitled to make their own decisions and do what they want. So if Herlock does want to have a go at Richards, absolutely. I was just saying that basically it's a bit of a tough nut to crack right now, is the Richards BMW. But still, you can see that a lot of them are on the hybrid out of Luffield and down the start-finish straight as they come around Woodcote on this national circuit. It's one of those real gems on a calendar, isn't it, in the national circuit? It's not the most complex of things in the world. It's not a massive amount of undulation, but it still works. But you've spotted something, Aidan.
Yeah, Callum Wilson has got a penalty. Track limits, most likely. So Richards went a bit wide through Copse. So it's track limits finally starting to catch up with people. Like last year with the old track limit system, that would have just been pinging penalties after penalty after penalty after penalty because it was just so strict. It was very black and white, like it is in other sims. So with the new one, where it's just like it gives you an opportunity, you have like a set amount of time you can gain, so you can. It's a bit like the old V8 supercars system with the curb at Adelaide, where it's like it's 2 laps left to go. I've got 3 strikes. I'm just yeeting it straight across, so you can't use them up in the way that you could in before. So, but you just take too much. White line's a white line. You cross it, you're going to get pinged.
We've just had a message off John Monroe. He's been disconnected again.
Yeah, I saw that.
Out of this race. So unfortunately, it's really not come together. Considering he started on pole position at the very start of the night for John, it's all gone downhill from there, I'm afraid. And we will not see him get a race victory or anything tonight. I'm impressed by Daniel Herlock staying this close to Matt Richards, and all the time while they are pushing like this, they're actually breaking away from the cars behind. Dan Kell in 4th position is now 6.1 seconds off the race leader, which is Ross McGregor. Once again, he's absolutely checked out here. Ross is looking really good right now. I mentioned earlier that he'd be after a race victory because he's not had one yet this season, but he's had 5 podiums and he wanted to go one better. He's on track to do that at the moment with 7 laps of this race left to go. And still there's a big train behind them, and still the likes of Platt and Morby are involved. Actually, sorry, it's not Platt, it's Leppit that's involved in that one. So he's really snuck up the order here, actually, hasn't he?
Yeah, it's great when you see drivers sneak up through the order, because then it gives you that surprise of... It's not like a, what are you doing there? You're not good enough to be there. It's just like, oh, well done. Oh, there's Morby off the track, so that's it's going to be the track limit calculation device, TM, going after that one. It's a weird system to get used to, but I think it works a lot better than what we had before. But this train here, drivers fighting over the positions, all very clean. It's almost like watching the real touring cars at the minute.
Yeah, and again, this is one thing that we always have to respect about sim racing, is the fact that it can replicate the real world racing so well. If you get the right grid of people together in the right cars in proper, decent conditions, that force people's hands when it comes to their talent in this sort of racing, it does replicate the real thing so well. They call it simulation at the end of the day because it is a simulation of real racing that we get to see. And these guys, we're not copying anything, they're just racing as hard as they can, but it just is so close to the real thing in R-Factor 2. It looks better and better all the time. That's one thing that R-Factor used to get criticised for, the way it looks compared to other sims, but honestly, it's always getting better. The sounds are fantastic these days as well, I have to say. These new touring cars really have that rasp about them that they might have been missing before. And this little quartet at the moment is very interesting because it's 4 different manufacturers, 4 different teams, and each of them has their own sort of strengths and weaknesses at different points of the track, don't they?
Yeah, it's a weird track, this one, because you go through Maggots and Beckett's and it's fast, and then you're sort of slowing up to turn in, and then you've got Brooklands, which we've talked about before, with the weird apex that it has, and you've got Luffield, which takes about 997 years to get round because it's just so long, especially in these. And I think it's just sliding further and further out every time you do a lap. 5 laps on the board at the minute, and that is one Chris Butcher under attack from one of the drag racing cars almost loses it on the little sort of sawtooth bit on the exit of the curb there.
It's the thing with rear-wheel drive cars; they can catch you out like that oh so much. You know, you've got the whole balance of front-wheel drive performance being understeer, 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 but in a lot of circumstances a bit easier to control. You know, you can't just plant your foot in the rear-wheel drive cars and get away with it. I've driven the Levorg a lot to know that it can be a real nightmare when you get a lot of compression and undulation on circuits, but somewhere flat like this, you know, you can get away with it in certain places because it's not as unpredictable. Silverstone is very flat, but there are still the odd bumps and drops here and there in this circuit. You'll see it as they go down towards Beckett's as well. It's almost like it does go downhill a little bit. There's that sort of sensation as you get onto the brakes turning left before you turn right. Yeah, indeed, Stowe, definitely. It sort of goes downhill and then curves back up towards you again, doesn't it? It's pretty amazing.
It's 13 metres. You wouldn't think that, yeah.
Wow.
Thruxton's 10.
Oh my God, I didn't even realise it was anything like that.
Did you not watch my video the other day?
I did not yet. Morby through the middle. Absolutely love that.
Brilliant overtake, Morbs. That was brilliant.
Amazing. And the funny thing is as well that Willis and Leppit, when they report that back, they'll be like, oh, did you see that red car go past me? Oh no, I thought it was a blue one. It's like through the middle of the pair of us. Who was that in that blue car? I don't know, but I had a red car go through the middle of us. Anyway, that was brilliant stuff by Morby. Great opportunism. And I think he must have heard me earlier on because I said it's the first race of the night where he's going to finish lower than he started. He's actually now moved up 2 places where he started. 8th up to 6th, which is where he would have been hoping he was before this race got underway, because that's what the reverse grid was.
Yeah, I love the reverse grid format. People are like, oh, you shouldn't penalise the faster drivers and things like that, but I think because we criticise top-level open-wheelers, we'll call it, for trying to manipulate things more for entertainment, but touring cars always seems to have that right balance between entertaining the fans, and they turn up in their droves. More people will turn up to a BTCC race than some football grounds on a Saturday afternoon. And you've got the actual racing, which is always what people want racing to be: fast and frantic and close, and always something going on. So yeah, I love the whole reverse grid thing, because then it makes the faster drivers work through the field. Show them how quick you are.
Absolutely. And, you know, Richards has a big old drifteroo, and Herlock says, thank you very much, mate. That was a wonderful slide by Matt. It didn't do anything for his race chances, and he's still kicking the back end of it out now. The tyres will be red hot on the rear of the BM, but that's all Herlock was waiting for. He was just waiting for that little moment where Matt pushed it a bit too hard, and he's piled the pressure on lap after lap, filled the mirrors with that Astra, and there is the moment. That's exactly what he's waited for, and it's only a couple of laps from the end. And now Dan Kell's going to be in on this as well, and he's going to be a very happy bunny right now, is Herlock. Kell might not be so much, though, because Richards will still lead the championship and still get more points on him. As, Butcher starting to come under pressure here from Willis, who's side-by-side around the outside. Morby's got past him as well, actually. I wonder if that's what's held him up, really, a move or a bit of a battle with Morby.
Willis around the outside. I think he's got that done. He has.
Wow. Wow. There's just nothing from that Astra, is there? Well, Leppit leapt at the opportunity.
Yeah.
Hello.
Lads. I'm watching.
That's it. Big Brother is always watching.
That's all above board. That's just touring cars, isn't it? A little bit of rubbing. That is proper rubbing is racing, not slamming the car into another one and going, oh no, rubber's racing, man, rubber's racing.
Yeah, rubbing, not headbutting. We're on to the final lap already here, Aidan, actually. McGregor leading Herlock, Richards, Kell, and then Morby now into the top 5. And still all of this shenanigans going on further down the order. It's been a fantastic night of entertaining racing, though. There's always been something going on here. There's not been a moment's silence, has there? It's great.
Yeah, that's what it's the best kind of racing, where there's always something going on. It's like you see some race broadcast and there's about 40 seconds between the, like endurance racing you'd expect it, but sprint racing like this, you always want them nice and close together.
You do indeed, and I'll come on to rose-tinted glasses in a few minutes' time after the racing's done. But round the final corners then comes Ross McGregor to take his first race victory of the season for Zansho Simsport in the Ford Focus. Very well done indeed to Ross. What a great night this has been for Daniel Herlock. Second place, beats Matt Richards on the road. I said it'd be a tough challenge. He just waited for him to crumble. Matt takes another podium though, and that's been another solid night of results for him ahead of Dan Kell, so he extends his championship lead even further. Morby next up in 5th place, and behind him Johannes Lepik, Chris Butcher down in 7th, Ben Willis 8th ahead of Cam Brewster, and Thomas Vack will finish the top 10. We then look again at Scott Morris around the final couple of corners, potentially doing a bit of drifty poos in the Subaru once more. But that does cap off a very, very entertaining night's racing, Aidan. We certainly chose a good one to come back for.
We did. We should do that again for the finale, if unless I end up being sort of lobbed in a cupboard somewhere by Mr. Jeffrey, who was supposed to be commentating tonight. Hopefully he's got that car sorted out and the AA has picked it up. But yeah, it's just so good to watch this kind of thing, and I'm sort of getting a bit of FOMO here because I kind of now want to be on that grid doing it, but I think there might be a little bit of a conflict of interests. Just be like, no, I'm going to throw that out. I can punt you off. I'm going to throw that out. I'm the steward. But yeah, it's a great league to watch, and hopefully when all of the content is now in the game for the BTCC stuff, we can get this out on somewhere and really promote it and get it out there and see what kind of thing we can do with touring cars, because they're kind of like the forgotten category in sim racing, because it's always GT3s, isn't it? It's always prototypes. It's always that kind of thing. It's like, this is the best racing you will get online and offline in real life. This is the best racing you'll get. Absolutely is. And funnily enough, and coincidentally, I'm available in 2 weeks' time on the 16th for the finale, so might have to see. But anyway, away from that, we'll look at the race result. Ross McGregor takes the win from Daniel Hurlock and Matt Richards, with Dan Kell finishing in 4th ahead of Phil Morby, Johannes Lepik in 6th, Chris Butcher 7th, Ben Willis 8th, Cam Brewster 9th, and Thomas Vack in 10th place. Then we have Jakub Kowalski, Dan Hyde in 12th ahead of Callum Wilson, who dropped down to 13th in the end, Dylan Platt in 14th, Scott Morris, final finisher, in 15th place, and then John Monroe disconnected and Chris Cobbett out much earlier on. I'm almost out of breath now, to be honest with you. It's been a very busy evening for it, but that's the thing with this sort of racing. You always want it to be like that. I mentioned rose-tinted glasses a moment ago, and we were saying about how close the racing is and how there's always something going on. And you know, you look back at the days of 90s Formula One and British Super Touring that we know and love so much. But to be honest with you, you look at the results sheets back then, you know, and people were winning in Formula One by nearly a lap. And then it was another lap behind second place to third. And even in touring cars, you know, during some of the feature races, we've seen gaps of like nearly 30 seconds from the leader to second place back. So really, when you look at the likes of Formula One and BTCC nowadays, we have to be grateful for the fact that it's so ridiculously close all the time, don't we? Yeah, I think the highlights on Grandstand made it look like it was the punt fest that we know and love of touring cars. But yeah, it's just so much fun to watch on YouTube and here as well, as we have Ross McGregor is here. He is indeed. Ross, I mean, I mentioned earlier, just at the start of that race when the grid was forming, that you've had a few podium finishes this season. You might want to go one better. You've gone and done it now. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's been a while since I've won in this championship, actually. So yeah, it's been long overdue, but it just shows you, like, when you've got a kind of clear track, it's just a case of getting your head down and avoiding all the kind of battling, and the time just comes, and you can look after your tyres as well, so it's pretty crucial. Also, I was on the soft tyres, which helped a lot, but I kind of earned that chance after taking the pain in race 2, so yeah, all good. I was going to say, you didn't have the easiest run of it over the first 2 races this evening. It was certainly elbows out stuff, and you really had to work for every single position. What were the first 2 races like, particularly race 1 with those wet and drying out conditions? Yeah, well, race 1 as a team, we totally messed up. So we took wet tyres at the start, and we weren't sure if it was going to rain at any point. So yeah, at the start of the race, everything was looking good. We were faster than all the slick runners, and then obviously towards the end of the race, we had no chance. So we just kind of held station. Then race 2 was just a case of try to work our way forward. But I was the first medium tyre finisher, so it's like the best I could have done, I think. Because I think the soft tyre was just a lot quicker than the medium tyre tonight. So So yeah, I'm actually fairly happy with race 2 and 3. I think I did as much as I could, so yeah, fairly happy all in all.
Well, that's exactly what you want from an evening, really. You know, plenty of strong racing. It was very entertaining from up here in the commentary box. Aidan and I have had a right ball with this one. Final round of the season coming up in 2 weeks' time at Brands Hatch. Can we expect to see you on the grid for that one?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, hoping to end on a high. I think we may be close to clinching the Teams Championship now, so not 100% sure about that. But yeah, if not, we'll try and get it at Brands.
Well, we hope it goes well for you. Ross, anyone you want to give a quick shout out to while we've got you?
A quick shout out to John Munro.
Yeah, he needs a hug tonight.
He was very unlucky. He's been super quick all season, basically. He's had loads of pole positions, so he's got the pace. He just has like terrible luck in the races. But I think this is a good experience for next season, where I will put 10 of my own Scottish pounds on him winning the championship.
Interesting. I'll take you up on that.
Excellent.
Although it's Scottish pounds, so it's probably worth about 5p to me, but it's all right.
Yeah.
It's legal tender.
At least you expect that.
Well, yeah, that's very true. Ross, thanks very much for talking to us, mate, and we'll see you at Brands.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Lovely stuff, though, Aidan. Like I said at the start of the night, you know, Ross and the team were hoping for a lot, and he did go that one better that we expected, so mega stuff.
Yeah, it just sucks that John has been rapid, but just had no luck. Either he's been fired off or he's had a disconnect and stuff like that. And actually, the what we think is the driver of the evening has just joined us in the broadcast room. That is Daniel Herlock. Dan, how you doing?
Doing well, thank you. And that is rather kind, I will say.
Well, you were always there throughout the thing, holding it with the likes of Butcher and Kel and Richard. So basically the 3 champions we've had this season. So to be able to stick with the rapid guys like that, you might as well take that at the end of the night.
Yeah, no, I'll take that. I always go up against Dan and Matt when we have raced in the past quite well. Not really raced Butcher much, but yeah, there's a good result in the end. Win just about eluded me, but you know, good result for us.
To be at the front's always a good feeling, isn't it? You'd rather be at the front than at the back. So, I mean, with race 1 being as it was, you know, with the tyres, did you take the dries or did you take the wets for that one?
I was on the dry tyres for that one.
You were just taking the gamble on it drying out.
I basically did a bit of running in warm up, saw there was half a dry line, and thought, yeah, good enough.
I might as well take it.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's probably just stopped raining in real life. Did it rain in the other races as well? Or
no, there's no rain, which a bit unfortunate because I quite enjoyed it. But you know,
how do you think you're going to go for Brands Hatch next time out?
Brands, it's a pretty decent track for us. We have the setup sorted well in advance now, so should be a solid weekend again, hopefully.
So it's good. The season finale might as well end on a high. So thanks for joining us tonight, and well done for the driving. Great results for you, and hopefully we'll be chatting again after the final races at Brands Hatch next time.
It's guys.
No problem. All right, we have potentially a couple of other people to join us. We've got a broadcast waiting room, and there's a long queue of people. They're probably all chatting. And YouTube's John Monroe is here. John, you've had a night to forget, I think, with your discos and things like that, especially after having pole position. How much of a downer has that put on your evening?
To be honest, nothing at all. I've kind of gotten used to things this season, so it's all a bit of fun, and I've had a good time. The main thing for me with this championship was just to try and do something competitive and get back into the speed of things with the kind of proper league racing. So it's been really good fun. The only expectation for me, or the hope, was that I could at least not let my teammates down and try and help us get a teams championship, and it looks like we have either almost secured that or have actually secured it. I'm not entirely sure. So my job is basically done, and at this point everything's a bonus. But yeah, today did not go to plan, let's just say that.
Yeah, but whose call was it to take the wets at the start of race 1?
Well, this was funny because I was sat there on pole, and I actually said, I was thinking, you know what, it looks like it could be dry because the times were getting too good. So I was sat there ready to click dry, but we were all a bit lazy over at Zancho. So I think someone came up with a suggestion that the rules said we weren't allowed to take wets if the tracks. No, we weren't allowed to take dries if the track was wet. So I was sat there ready to take dries, but I believed my teammates, who I have a lot of trust in. So we all took wets, thinking that was the rule. Obviously, it's the opposite way around. So we all completely screwed ourselves over. But it's every single one of our faults for not reading the rules closely enough. So that was a lesson.
If only there was a steward.
I know,
you sent a DM to
right?
clarify that. I mean,
well, I mean, I think it was him. I can put it on him actually. He was the one who actually said, "No, you be careful with this," you know. So I blame Matt. I think Matt should give me his points.
Yeah, you can. Well, he's tricked you. That's what he's done.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah.
Well,
to be honest, I don't think I'm much of a threat to him, Aiden.
But you can take the dries, but it's your fault if you end up in a wall. So it's it's the other way around, using the wets when we've already been through that once this season. But do you think you can probably have a decent time out at Brands Hatch next time out for the finale?
We'll see. Yeah. I've had really good I've been really quick in qualifying. So I think I've had 4 or 5 poles, and I've had a couple of wins. I think 3 wins in race 1s. But I tend to my night just goes so far downhill after that. So yeah, we'll wait and see. Hopefully a pole position at Brands, maybe a top 3 in the first race, and then anything other than a DNF for the rest of the night will be great.
Yeah, it's always good to finish a race. When you say you're used to it, that's kind of that happens a bit too much. So hopefully it all works out for you in the end, and you have a strong end to your season.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, no, it's been really good fun all year, and as much I've been really unlucky this year, but I've also made a lot of mistakes myself as well. So yeah, it balances itself out, and it's been really, really good fun. So thank you for all of your work on the broadcasts and the penalties and all that, because I know it's been busy for you at some points, Aiden. But yeah, hopefully we'll have some fun at Brands, and wrap up the season in a nice way, and hopefully celebrate a team's championship.
Yeah, no bias, but it would be nice to have a constructors championship at the end of it. But
one more thing as well, I'm gonna put 20 Scottish pounds on Ross McGregor beating me next season, because he's just that man has talent. Now, did you see him in race 3? He was incredible. So
he was flying.
I might actually put. You know what? I'll put my whole bank account, 30 quid, on Ross winning the championship.
Is that how much it's worth now with inflation?
Well, it's dropping by the minute. We'll reassess tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, and hopefully you have a better time at Brands.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
No worries.
Oh, well, 30 quid? I'll take that.
30 quid. It's a pizza, isn't it? A decent pizza.
Well, what is half of one from Domino's, but still.
Yeah, true. Other pizza places are available, by the way.
Yes, indeed. They certainly are. We have Chris Butcher with us tonight, and I'm actually really glad we get to speak to Chris. Didn't seem like your night tonight, Chris. It was like somebody had stuck a massive magnet on the back of that Astra, and everyone was glued to the back of it, and you were towing everyone around. Talk us through it, mate.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you run a Snetterton setup for Silverstone, and your first practice laps were in the wet. So not ideal, but it was good fun. I enjoyed it. It was quite a challenge to keep everybody behind, and with hindsight, I think I did quite well, to be honest. And it's a while since I could say I could enjoy one of these races, because I've been struggling a bit in the second half of the season, really. So since it became clear that I wasn't going to be in the title fight towards the end of the championship, I just sort of approached it in a different way and just thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out there and just enjoy the races, and I think that really helped tonight, to be fair. And I've not really bothered about the results. I just focused on having good battles with people, and I don't really mind, to be honest.
Well, hats off to you, Chris, because, I mean, to come in here and say that you've enjoyed it, there's not many drivers that would have enjoyed a night like that. But like you say, when your focus shifts a little bit from a title fight to just enjoying the racing, we're all here because we're here for the love of it. We're not here because it's a job and we have to do it. It's great to see that there is still that passion behind the wheel there, because it did seem like the car just wasn't quite in the right place. We didn't know whether it's set up or whether it was just the car in general that didn't suit it. But then obviously we were looking at the other Astra that was around you with Dan Herlock at the wheel, and there was a distinct difference. So we were sort of speculating throughout what was going on. I mean, the defensive work, though, you had to hold off a lot of guys in a lot of places there. Were there any certain little knacks that you had to doing that, or was it just a case of see who goes for the send and when and just react accordingly?
Well, in race 1, it was I know I was sort of on the attack, but there was very much only one line in race 1. So whenever somebody came up behind me, it was just a case of staying on the dry line. To be honest, that was fairly straightforward. In race 2, I kind of figured out that I was quite good coming onto the Wellington straight. I was getting a decent run out of there. So I thought, if I could just sort of hang on around there and use my push to pass down the straight, then it's going to be difficult for people to have a go into Brooklands. So that's kind of what I focused on, really, and it seemed to work for the most part. But then people would just manage, as the tyre wear sort of started to be a factor, people could stay a bit closer to me. So it was only a matter of time, to be fair. And in terms of where we were versus other cars, we've never really had the car in the right window, to be honest with you. At the beginning of the season, we put a lot of effort into the car at Donington, and we figured out the infamous ride height trick quite quickly. So that's why we were so strong at Donington, and then we were just sort of chasing our tails a little bit after that. We couldn't really figure out how to make the car work, and the fact that we've been in a really sort of tight championship battle in a different series, our focus has kind of been on that probably predominantly, to be honest with you. So unfortunately, even though THR is sort of famous for touring cars, it's kind of went to the side a little bit. But it's just one of those things, you kind of get out of it what you put in, and we've just not put enough in really this season.
Well, it's a shame to see the results not quite going as they did in previous seasons, but it means now that you go to Brands Hatch at the end of the season, maybe with not as much pressure on your shoulders this time round. Is it a circuit that you're really hoping to enjoy and get the most out of? Because it is a bit of a cracker, isn't it?
I hate Brands Hatch, to be honest with you.
I'll dug myself in a hole there.
I never really do that well there, to be honest with you. But no, I might not actually be able to make the race because I've got a conflicting race on Wednesday. So we'll see. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out yet. I might be able to make it, I might not. So I'm not really sure. But it would be nice to see the season out.
Yeah.
But there's not really any expectations, to be honest. Just go out there and have a good time.
Well, we do hope, of course, to see you out there on the grid, Chris. And if not, then best of luck with your other commitments that evening. Is there anyone that you'd like to give a quick shout out to or a quick thanks to while we've got you in the box?
No. Yeah, there is. Well, we've got to say thanks to VMO and all the admins that put a lot of time into doing this, and Aidan for all the reports that he has to deal with, because I'm sure that's I know from taking part in those things myself in another league, I know it's a thankless task. So it's easy to forget that all these people volunteer the time to put on a good show for us, and yourself, Chaz, spending your Wednesday evening commentating on us smashing each other around. And I would like to say thank you to my teammates, but they're not here tonight, so we'll leave that one. Yeah.
Well, always good to speak to you, Chris, and again, great defending tonight with the car not quite behaving as you'd like, and hopefully we'll see you at Branson again. If not, best of luck with whatever you have on that evening.
Thanks very much.
Cheers. Lovely stuff then, Chris Butcher, a driver that's always up there in the standings, and I must admit, hello. There was obviously the rivalry previously with Zansho and the THR boys in the previous seasons, but it's still a shame not to see him right up there in the sort of point scoring positions right at the very top, like we've seen in previous seasons, isn't it?
Yeah, they were the team that it's kind of like the I guess the Mercedes versus Red Bull thing from last year. They were, yeah. I mean, it got heated, and it's just like, lads, come on, this is a banter league. We're just having fun on a Wednesday night. It's like there's no money on the line here. You can sort of chill a bit, but we've sort of got past that now, and we know what everybody's about and things like that. So yeah, you sort of get through it. But that's just blokes, isn't it? We want to punch each other, and then the next minute it's just like, hey, look, I'll buy you a pint. We're over that now.
That's it. Give me a hug.
No.
Indeed. Well, one driver that probably went through a bit of that tonight, to be fair, with wanting to punch people, but then at the same time absolutely loving what was going on, was super sub Dylan Platt. I mean, Dylan, you had a hell of an evening. Started off with a race win, and then, of course, you were right in the thick of every battle from that point onwards when the circuit was drier. Talk us through what that was like, especially in a boat like the Livorg.
Yeah. I only found out like I was racing during the practice sessions. So I didn't.
Oh wow!
And then thrown in straight into the heavy rain conditions. And race 1, was an absolute blast. Trying to fight my way through on the dries on a half-wet circuit. Race 2, slightly more frustrating. And probably did want to punch some people at points, but that's racing. You go through those. Race 3, had some contact with Ben Willis, which spun me around. He's apologised. No harm done.
Yeah, I was going to say it was busy from all angles, but I didn't realise it was so late that you got the call up to serve really this evening. But that's what makes it even more impressive, to be fair, because I suppose having those horrible conditions to begin with, where, I mean, Aidan and I got a quick glimpse into the practice session thanks to our broadcaster Mike, and he showed us just how wet it was with the amount of standing water, and coming straight into that must have been nightmare fuel, but at the same time, it prepared you tenfold for the fact that it must have been much better when the track was dry and more grippy.
Yeah, I mean, I was massively helped, it kind of balanced out with the lack of practice, the wet conditions, and it was so wet, going through Woodcut, we were sliding. We had to catch the car every time, so we're kind of lucky it did dry up, otherwise it wouldn't have been racing a bull through there.
Yeah, I think we caught one of those slides at one moment, actually, where you came into shot completely sideways.
Oh, yeah.
Aidan had a sharp inhale, and so did I. It was quite the minute.
On the pit limiter there as well. That was not fun.
Oh, heck. Yeah, I can imagine that would catch people out behind. But still, you were one of the most entertaining drivers out there tonight, has to be said. Can we expect to see you back on the grid for Brands, or is this a one-off cameo this season?
We'll see, depends if Dan can race again. It's all dependent on his issues. Or if anyone else might want to give me a go, I don't know. We'll see, but I'd love to.
Well, we really hope to see you out there, Dylan. It'd be really good to have. Either way, you were a great addition to this evening, and of course, well done on your respective results. Anyone you want to give a quick shout to while we've got you?
Just, my team, the setup from when I last drove it has taken a massive step forwards, and it's very
Fair enough.
Yeah, my mind's just gone at this point.
It's a mentally draining evening with these touring cars. I can.
Yeah.
Me and Aidan we've both had the experience of it before, and we know that your brain can be like mush at the end of the night. So we'll leave you to it, mate. But thanks very much for your time once again, Dylan. Great to see you on the grid, and hopefully we'll see you at Brands.
Yep. Cheers.
Thanks very much, mate. Well, I believe if we're going to go through the whole list, we may have two more drivers to speak to here, Aidan. And yes, indeed.
Might as well bring them both in at the same time.
Yeah, we may as well. The two championship protagonists still, effectively, at this stage. We'll start with Monsieur Kell, who definitely had a busy evening tonight and didn't seem to ever be too far away from a Zanshow teammate, Dan. You always had somebody around you, but it wasn't always helping you out, was it?
Yeah, it was quite fun tonight, actually. It's just another round where it's just been quite fun. Like, I've never had like the pace, because obviously we've got Matt here who decides he wants to podium and win every race, not leaving any for us. But it's just another consistent round I've had, and it's been a sort of a common theme. And I've just been looking at the results. It's just I've always been 4th, 5th, occasional podium, mainly in race 2, and it's just always been there. So it's been a very average season in a sense, but a good one that I've enjoyed, and especially to now be up into like P2 in the championship, I will take, considering the struggles we had early on in the season as well with the setup and our pace difference. It's been very enjoyable, and it was very enjoyable tonight as well.
I was just saying before, actually, when the third race was coming to an end, it's the fact that, coming into this race meeting, Matt had 6 wins and 15 podiums. You had 2 wins and 6 podiums, but the gap really wasn't massive between the two of you, because when you're not on the podium, you're still right up there in the top 5, scoring consistent points time and time again. And we all know that in this sort of championship, where the results can be amazing to begin with on an evening and then can go absolutely to pot by the end of the night, it's those consistent point scores that matter, and that's what wins championships, isn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's quite a testament to the championship this season as well, where like the quality of driving, like sort of in that top sort of 12, 13, is really good. And when you bring the weight into it, it sort of means everyone's kind of the same pace level. So it's like I found myself a few points, especially with like a race-free reverse grid. If you're down in like P10, you just can't make progress because everyone's so close on pace. But if you get a P6 reverse grid like we saw tonight, you can stay up at the front. And yeah, as you say, I mean, I think I've had about probably 10 top 5s this season or something. Ridiculous.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's one of those where I like the hybrid systems, and I think it's been a great step forward, obviously, and it helps with the sustainability of a lot of things in terms of road cars and the whole industry. But personally, I think that the one thing that drivers can't drive around is the fact that there's weight in the car. You know, with the hybrid, you choose when it gets deployed and so on, but I always think that ballast is king when it comes to leveling out a championship, and it's good to see that there is still a positive effect from that, and drivers are still very close, or at least we think they would be, coming to you, Mr. Richards, because that BMW looks like it's part of an Aurora AFX Scale X trick kit, because it looks like it's on rails everywhere it goes. Talk us through how that thing behaves.
Yeah, it's all right. It gets a bit rowdy at times, as was seen in race 3 towards the end. But yeah, I've just gradually worked on the setup over the season and got it to a place where it's just really controllable, and I can really sort of pin it on the rear end and just get it working exactly how I wanted to. And I've given other people the opportunity to try the setup, and I've had a few people come to me and say, I don't know how you can drive that. But I mean, it works. It clearly works. So yeah, another just consistent evening, just bagging as many points as I can. I think I sealed the independents tonight, and then hopefully next round we can finish off with the main one.
Well, I mean, you mentioned there that obviously it takes a lot to drive that car, and Aidan mentioned earlier your drifting efforts on Assetto Corsa potentially contributing to that as well, to be fair. But I mean, it's a car that I think, well, even when Aidan drove it last season as well, we all saw that the car can float sideways very nicely. You know, you can get it pitched in quite a bit, and the rear end can come around, but you can carry the momentum with it. But it really is a fine balancing act, isn't it, in a rear-wheel drive car? Because if you do get on the power that little bit too much, if you're a bit greedy with the right foot, it can very quickly catch you out, can't it, and snap around.
Oh, 100%. And there were a few times in race 1 where, I mean, the balance was constantly changing with the conditions, which is something that I've not experienced this season, because I did miss the round that did rain. So it was interesting to try and handle the car whilst the car is changing through the race on the tyres, but also whilst the track is completely evolving and certain things are happening with, this person started on slicks, so they're catching up. And there are a few points where I just dipped the rear wheel onto the wet a little bit too much, and it did really, really try to take off. So you have still got to be really careful with it. And like you said, you can float it on the rear end and get that front wheel to lift up and just get it to really dig out the corners. But it is really a fine balance of not pushing it too hard, and I think race 3 was an example of what happens when when you do push it a little bit too hard.
Well, it was certainly entertaining, that is safe to say. Dan, coming back to you, obviously one race meeting left this season at Brands. We've seen strong drives from you there before. Is it around where you think you can claw some points back, or is it a case of with going up against Matt, the job might already be done for him?
Yeah, he's won the championship. Let's be real. I ain't catching a 50-point gap on him or whatever it is. I just want to secure P2, to be honest. That's sort of my main aim, because to be honest, I've been saying to Matt for the past 4 rounds he's probably won it, because he's just untouchable. It's like, yeah, he's just been on another level. It's just, yeah. If I can secure P2, I'll take that, because then it means past like 3 seasons. I think I was second in season 1, won last season, second this season. Now I'll take that.
Yeah, not a bad record at all. And Matt, obviously, with one race meeting to go, as Dan mentions there, quite the points gap between the two of you. Is it a case of that points gap changing your approach to it, or is it all going to be still gung ho and throw the BMW sideways?
Oh no, I'm still going to give it 100%, without a shadow of a doubt. At the end of the day, there's no point turning up if you're just going to poodle around in the midfield and just comfortably know, oh yeah, I could just get it to the end of the evening. As long as I don't lose too many points, it's fine. I don't want to do that. I want to turn up and have fun and be right at the front battling with the top guys and seal it properly,
Nicely said, mate. Nicely said. Well, Dan, anyone you want to give a quick thanks to on air?
Probably John and Ross for being like such great teammates all year. Obviously, John's had his fair share of issues, more compounded tonight by random disconnects. But like they've both been there. They've both just been very supportive. Help work on setup, practicing. It's been really fun to be around, and like we can just jump on, just practice. Yeah, it's just fun. I won't say thank you to Matt because he's making me finish second in the championship. But to be fair, like we just jump on and just practice. It's just fun. Like it's just thanks to VMO for putting it on again, and obviously the broadcast, top notch as usual. And
lovely stuff. And Matt, of course, before we let you go as well, is there anyone that you'd like to give a quick word for?
Oh, just everyone turning up, just turning up to the events, and just really making it an enjoyable environment to be in. I'm working on my own in terms of setup. There's a few things that I'll ask Dan a couple of times, just sort of engineering questions. So just thank you to him, really, I guess.
Yeah, and it works as well.
He might be fighting me in the championship, but he's giving me the tools to beat him. So.
Oh, I love that. Well, still, great camaraderie between the pair of you. Both awesome driving throughout the season. And, of course, we look forward to seeing you wrap it up and, of course, enjoy the end of the season at Brands Hatch, boys. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Well, there we go, Aidan, our 2 championship protagonists joining us in the box to wrap up the evening. And, it's nice that they can be like that. We've seen a number of championships between us, I'm sure, whether it be real or in sim racing, where the drivers have got so much animosity towards each other going into the final couple of meetings, or even just the final meeting itself, that they just can't be in the same room, they can't be in the same Discord or anything. But it's great to see that they have that laugh and they've still got that respect. I mean, at the end of the day, they are still teammates, but still, there is surely a little bit of competition still left there as well.
Yeah, it's just friendly competition, isn't it? And it's just like, well, Matt will probably win the championship, but it's like, oh, I'll get you next time. That kind of attitude to it. And if you go in and you treat it like it is a real championship, like with, we've got virtual Le Mans on Saturday, haven't we? And where there is like money on the line, and they're taking it super seriously, and spreadsheets and data and 12,000 practice laps, calculating everything to the last second. All that. You bring that try hard attitude into something like this, and you suck all the fun out of it. So you just turn up with 12 laps of practice and just be like, I'm just enjoying myself.
Yeah,
like leagues like this are still an integral part of the sim racing sphere. You do have your official FSR and Formula Pro, Virtual Le Mans and GPVWC, and some of the stuff that you do as well with the over on iRacing, where there's big money involved and stuff like that. You need these kind of leagues to just remind yourself that this is just fun. It's a hobby, and you need to separate hobby from esports, and that's what I loved about. I'm trying not to plug it, but the GP Laps thing with the historic stuff.
Yeah.
Enzo Fazzi, Joni Simičić, Nico Hillebrand, those guys are turning up, and you think when they turn up, you think, oh, they're just going to try hard it. They're just going to use all their setup hacks, and they're just going to win by five laps. But they don't.
Yeah, for sure.
They turn up and they're there to have a lap because it's different. Like this is different, and I think you know where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And it's got a great vibe around it. This championship, there were concerns over how competitive it got last season, that vibe would have been lost for a bit. But everybody's now back in the same boat again, and with this sort of revival of it, with the hybrid as well, and these newer cars that are coming into the sim, it's really given it another lease of life that, to be honest, it didn't really need. But at the end of the day, anything that can help a championship like this, everybody's going to embrace it in open arms and take it on board and just get the most out of it and enjoy it. And that's certainly what we've done tonight. But unfortunately, that is all we have time for here this evening from the VMO TCUK, the Pixelate TCUK series of 2022. Aidan, it's been an absolute pleasure working together once again. Plenty of fun. Thank you, as always, to Mike Yao, our wonderful producer, and thank you to everybody that has tuned in this evening to watch this action. On the 16th of November, we will be back with you 2 weeks' time from today for the final race meeting of the season from Brands Hatch. But for now, it's been Chaz Draycott and Aidan Millward, Mike Yao on the production, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good evening, everybody.